Australia is about to experience one of the most extensive heat waves on record, with large parts of the country to bake in 45-degree temperatures for more than a week.
Weather records are being broken as eastern Australia bakes in extreme heat. Hobart hit an all-time high today of 41.8 degrees. And there are reports tonight of several homes destroyed by bushfires in Tasmania.
Emergency crews across the state were on red alert as the mercury surged past 45 degrees, making today one of the hottest in Adelaide's history.
There were too many hotspots to count across Australia. 48 in Port Augusta. Adelaide has only hit 44 3 times in the last century. In Victoria, Hopetoun boiled at 44 degrees. New South Wales peaked at 45.
48 degrees at Woodner on Eyre Peninsula.
In Queensland, Birdsville reached 47 degrees.
Up on a tin roof, the temperature was closer to 55 degrees.
Massive wildfires are scorching parts of the Australian island state of Tasmania. Thousands of people have fled the flames.
More than 40 fires are still burning across Tasmania after a heat wave with temperatures up to 40 degrees hit the Australian island state.
A tsunami warning is in effect after a massive 7.5 magnitude earthquake hit off the southern coast of Alaska. Happened around 4 a.m. Eastern this morning. Officials urge anyone in the warning area to move inland and find higher ground.
Australia's record-breaking heat wave is continuing to fuel outbreaks of wildfires across scores of thousands of hectares in the southeast of the country.
The pictures coming out of Australia tonight are apocalyptic. Flames devouring homes, huge black and brown blossoms of smoke. It's so hot the government had to change its forecast maps, adding new shades of purple for temperatures possibly hitting 130 degrees. Scenes like this are becoming more common. The entire planet has gotten hotter in recent decades.
The Australian Bureau of Meteorology is forecasting 54 degrees Celsius in central Australia for next Monday.
Jerusalem has virtually ground to a standstill after Israel's worst snowstorm for 20 years. Up to 15 centimetres fell overnight, forcing public transport and schools to shut down. There's been severe weather too in the West Bank, where hail, snow and heavy rain brought flooding and landslides. 4 Palestinians died, and dozens of houses were flooded in the Gaza Strip. In the north of Israel, along the border with Lebanon, much of the Galilee region was paralysed by the rare wintry conditions, with 30 centimetres of snow reported in the city of Suffolk.
A cyclone is growing in force and heading for the north coast of WA. Tropical cyclone Narelle is now Category 3 and should be Category 4 when it comes close to land on Friday.
Workers have also been evacuated from oil rigs off the coast, and if you take a look at these photographs, it's probably not surprising. These were taken by a tugboat operator and show a massive storm bearing down on the coast. But this was on Wednesday, well before the cyclone was anywhere near those oil fields.
Tropical cyclone Narelle has intensified as it continues to move towards WA's northwest. There's a cyclone warning in place for several communities, including Exmouth.
Snow in Southern California.
This is not what Southern California generally looks like. A major highway shut down thanks to blankets of blowing snow. Thousands of cars and semis were immobilized for hours, stuck on a snowbound section of I-5 just outside Los Angeles overnight. With that wicked wind and snow comes killer cold. Farmers in California scrambled to protect precious crops as temperatures plunged toward record lows in the 30s.
In parts of Colorado, Wyoming, where places are seeing not only blizzard conditions, but also big dust storms.
Roads in Australia melt as record temperatures hit the outback.
Outback Queensland towns have smashed temperature records for a second day in a row. We're close to 50 degrees.
There are already more than 100 wildfires out of control. These are the most catastrophic conditions for fire in Australia in living memory.
What seems to be a backwards weather picture, freezing in the southwest, record warmth across much of the east.
It's a tale of two temperatures, warm in the east and rare winter chill in the west. Overnight, temperatures again fell into the 30s in Southern California.
Government climatologists reporting the biggest Arctic ice melt in history.
Arctic sea ice, it has melted to the smallest amount ever we've ever seen by satellite. NASA and NOAA got together and said, what do we think? What's going on here?
Along the California coast, the ocean is expected to rise another 3 to 5 feet by the end of the century. 3.5 million Californians live within 3 feet of sea level.
Today, we learned some facts about how this Earth is changing and how fast. New research concludes that Antarctica is melting.
Floodwaters are covering large areas of central and southern Indiana after days of heavy rain.
Thousands of fish washed ashore on Pawleys Island today.
Of dead menhaden fish stretching 1.5 miles long.
Apparently, you can smell those decomposing fish from about a mile away.
Jakarta, the capital of Southeast Asia's largest economy, today brought to its knees.
Deadly flooding has submerged Jakarta, paralyzing the Indonesian capital. At least 7 people have been killed in the rising waters triggered by heavy monsoon rains, with water levels up to 6.5 feet in some places.
Officials have warned that over the next few days, the rains will continue to increase.
A city of more than 10 million people has come to a standstill.
Fire continues to rage. Just the scope and the size of that fire, it's a 5-kilometre fire front.
Firefighters say they've been surprised by the ferocity of a large bushfire that's burning out of control east of Melbourne.
The warnings for some significant snowfall are already in place, with a rarely issued red warning being given out for parts of Wales.
Heathrow, the world's busiest airport, was again hit with flight cancellations, stranding thousands. It's the same story in Paris. Heavy snow has also fallen in Poland. Croatia's been struggling with a blizzard all week, affecting 11 major cities and causing transport chaos.
Residents in Western Cape York communities are on alert tonight after a tropical low intensified into a Category 1 cyclone a short time ago. Cyclone Oswald is expected to make landfall before midnight. North Queensland also prepares for torrential rain over the coming days.
Freezing temperatures and heavy snow continue to batter parts of Europe, causing further travel chaos. At Frankfurt Airport, 27% of flights were cancelled after a bout of fresh snow following freezing rain on Monday. Meteo France has issued orange alerts for Paris. Charles de Gaulle Airport was similarly hit, with mostly short-haul services being affected.
We begin with one of the worst Arctic storm systems to hit a wide section of the country in years. It has gone from dangerous now to deadly.
Minnesota's wind chills could be as low as 50. That's 50 below.
Sudden snowbursts and icy conditions turned a Cincinnati highway into a death trap. Whiteout conditions blinded drivers before this 86 vehicle pileup.
Never seen like it in my life. I called my boss, freaking out. I called my wife. It was worse than I ever seen.
It was 12 below zero when a Minnesota snowplow driver found a snowmobiler who'd been missing since Saturday.
He looked like he was frozen. I mean, he looked severely frozen.
The vicious winds caused plenty of property damage. The gusts were so powerful, chunks of ice, at least a foot thick, blew off of Wisconsin's Lake Winnebago.
And residents who've been living here along the shores of Lake Winnebago their whole lives tell me they've never seen anything quite like this.
In Michigan, the Pontiac Silverdome under renovation appears to be damaged after snow and windstorms hit the Detroit area. And in Utah, a frozen water pipe on a hillside may have sent a giant boulder into a woman's home. It struck her bedroom at 3 in the morning, and she needed emergency surgery.
With her jaw wired shut, I'm probably not going to get the full story for a couple of weeks.
As the storm blows across the Northeast today, New England is bracing for up to a foot of snow. Up to 3 feet fell on upstate New York.
Cyclone-strength winds and torrential rain are tonight continuing to batter a stretch of Queensland's coastline, almost 1,800 kilometres long. Communities from Cooktown to the border are being affected by the remains of ex-tropical cyclone Oswald, which is slowly gaining strength. Hundreds of people are stranded at Ingham.
Big chill, 133 million Americans in this together. Wisconsin, Chicago, New York, and Washington, D.C. doing anything we could to stay warm. It was so cold today, the Great Lakes had a wind chill of -40, which feels colder than the North Pole.
This is the real deal, the polar air. This is New York.
the centre of the city, and it's been so cold there that water coming out of one of the fountains freezes.
More than a dozen states have winter weather advisories, with major cities in the Midwest either near or below zero on Tuesday.
And for most of the country, it's a sudden and drastic change. In Cedar Rapids, Iowa, a balmy 51 degrees Saturday. Less than 48 hours later, it was 2 degrees below zero, a temperature swing of more than 53 degrees.
The wind is just ripping. It makes it 10 times worse than it should be.
A fire at an ice-covered warehouse in Chicago has rekindled 2 days after the large blaze first began. Firefighters were forced to return to the fully engulfed icy building to battle the aggressive fire once again. It comes after the extremely cold weather caused hydrants and hoses to freeze.
13 states, 91 million Americans are facing a weekend of treacherous cold, ice, and snow, and this is how it looks. This week, Arctic air washing down over this country in waves, wave after wave.
Queensland is again a state of disaster as an intense low-pressure system continues its destructive advance towards southeast Queensland. This afternoon, 3 tornadoes struck near Bundaberg, smashing Bargara, where a disaster has been declared. A disaster declaration has also been made at Gladstone, where a metre of rainfall has forced the evacuation of communities as dams spill over.
Severe rains have caused dangerously high sea levels along large parts of the southern African coastline over the past few days.
As many as 40 people were killed when torrential rains in South Africa and Zimbabwe swelled the Limpopo River. At least 150,000 people have been displaced by the deluge.
And government officials fear things will get worse if the rains continue.
For many, living in southeastern Queensland is becoming an endurance test, recovering from one natural disaster just in time to deal with the next. The latest storms and floods sweeping across the state of parts of northern New South Wales have seen at least 3 people die, hundreds rescued and thousands of residents ordered to evacuate, and more than 200,000 homes without power.
And once again, you talk about a 100-year flood. Ipswich is suffering the 1 and 2 flood every 2 years.
The rain is getting heavier in Sydney tonight, with the worst of the wild weather yet to come.
Now to the Sunshine Coast, where big waves and rough seas have caused a build-up of foam along a beach at Alexandra Headland. The foam has blanketed nearby roads and even made its way into some people's homes.
People have been down on the beachfront all morning watching this vision. It's just incredible to see. The waves have brought up foam right up across the road. It's coming across the road into resorts now and as you said, people's homes.
Oh, I couldn't believe it. Never seen anything like this. I've lived here for about 4 years, but no, never seen anything like this in my life.
I just can't believe the extent of how it's going into people's houses, and it's crazy. It's just crazy, but it's a little bit scary too.
A 6.7 magnitude earthquake struck Chile. Buildings were rattling as the first quake.
A 6.7 magnitude earthquake has shaken central Chile.
We've got debris now flying to the left and center of this system. Sirens have been going off here. The wind is kicking up along with the rain. Again, a funnel just crossing the interstate here in Adairsville.
Scientists think it was an EF2 or greater, with wind speeds more than 125 miles an hour.
This sinkhole in Guangzhou City swallowed a whole building complex on Monday. The ground first gave way at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Then there was a further landslip later, which claimed another 3-story building.
Britain's top health chief, Professor Dame Sally Davis, has warned that we're looming towards an antibiotics apocalypse, and the fact that bacteria is becoming increasingly resistant to current drugs, coupled with the fact that we're running low on supplies, poses, she says, a bigger threat than global warming.
Powerful earthquake measuring 6.9 hit Japan late on Saturday night near the town of Obihiro in the north of the country and was preceded by an early warning broadcast on TV and radio.
A tsunami alert has just been issued in the South Pacific after a magnitude 8.0 earthquake struck just northeast of Australia in the Solomon Islands. There have since been a series of powerful aftershocks that have hit the area. According to the U.S. Tsunami Warning Center, sea levels tonight indicate that a tsunami was in fact generated by this very large earthquake. But again, an 8.0 magnitude earthquake has struck in the South Pacific tonight. It has triggered a tsunami watch for, among other places, Samoa, New Zealand, Australia, Indonesia, and the U.S. territory of Guam.
You're putting on a fiery show like you've never seen before. A team of photographers capturing an incredible display in eastern Russia. 4 volcanoes they found were erupting at the same time, just over 100 miles apart.
Nobody's ever seen anything like this. 4 different volcanoes, 4 completely separate eruptions happening at the same time. Unprecedented.
An unprecedented upsurge in porpoise, dolphin and whale strandings along the west coast. In the last 10 days, over 20 dead dolphins and 3 whales have been washed ashore.
The Irish Whale and Dolphin Group says the recent upsurge in beachings is certainly a cause for concern. Over the last 10 days, sightings of the dead sea mammals have been flooding in.
But it's unprecedented, really, to have so much in such a short period of time.
Something going wrong on the earth right now. Nobody's saying anything. That one spot, I've had hundreds of megaquakes / earthquakes. Right now, as we speak, since the past 9 days, since January 30, 2013, one spot on the earth, 8.0, 7.0, 6.8, 6.5, 6.4, 6.2, 6.1, 5.6, 5.0. Hundreds! The earth shall what? Reel to and fro. What do you mean reel? Let me tell you what's the meaning of reel. Reel is to move around in one place. Reel is to be rocked and rocked and rocked from anywhere, but in one place. You're gonna move from a quake and a shake to a split, to a slice, to a dividing asunder.
The nor'easter that immobilized more than 40 million Americans this weekend.
Why this snowstorm paralyzed some of the most heavily populated areas of this country.
At one point, the storm forced every road in the state to shut down.
Boston was one of the areas hardest hit and record-making here. It was the 5th largest snowfall on record in weather history.
And to give you a sense of the power of this storm, the winds were as strong as a Category 1 hurricane with gusts up to 83 miles an hour.
So again, this is not one but two storms joining together. The airspace is pretty much shut down.
An emergency declaration. This was a record-breaking storm throughout the state.
And responsible for taking at least 9 lives.
The extreme weather slamming the country, tornadoes tearing the south, a new blizzard developing.
This is perhaps an extraordinary event that we are watching unfold here.
You have signs down, you have power lines down, the power poles are snapped, there's debris all over the place. There are cars in the middle of the road, there are cars upside down.
The 15 tornadoes were reported in that one line. This was on the ground, long-running, long wedge-shaped tornado.
And it was one tornado warning after another. They just kept coming. All of a sudden, the sky went dark, and then came the sound of terror, a giant tornado screaming through town.
I've never heard it like that. It's usually loud.
By the time the tornado hit Hattiesburg, residents say it looked a mile wide.
This is not minor damage. This is significant damage.
Benedict XVI is going to resign. Pope Benedict will step down as head of the Catholic Church at the end of February the 28th. That is according to a Vatican spokesman. He is due to leave his ministry at 8 p.m. on February the 28th. No reason has come into us as yet as to why this resignation is happening. We still do not have any confirmation at all as to the reason for this.
The information is very sketchy. It's really not something that's very usual, and but what is very, very interesting is that he's actually chosen to resign.
As we were just saying, that is incredibly unusual, one in history that we can think of for a pope to step down. It doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
So there must be a very big dramatic reason for this.
Pastor, I have to say there was no speculation in weeks gone by that anything like this might be about to unfold. There hasn't been a story quite like this in the many centuries of the reporting of events at the Vatican, certainly not in modern times. We're hearing, though, in the last 20 minutes or so that the Pope, speaking in Latin, made this extraordinary announcement that he would step down.
They quote a statement from the Vatican saying, "For this reason, and well aware of the seriousness of this act, with full freedom, I declare that I renounce the ministry of Bishop of Rome, successor of St. Peter."
Some extraordinary pictures which came to us from the Vatican on what was, of course, an extraordinary day. Within hours of Pope Benedict announcing that he was to resign, take a look at this. Lightning struck St. Peter's Basilica. You can see it again now in slow motion. Extraordinary. It happened just before 6 o'clock in the evening, local time.
A sign from God. Just hours after the Pope announced his surprise resignation, the heavens over Rome opened and the top of St. Peter's Basilica was struck by lightning.
Breaking news this hour. People in the Urals in Russia have seen burning objects raining down from the sky after a meteorite exploded above the Earth, causing a meteor shower. Eyewitnesses reported several blasts rocking the region and as long trails of smoke in the air.
Well, remember, imagine you're driving to work on a beautiful, calm Friday morning and suddenly a massive fireball appears out of nowhere in the sky. You're thinking to yourself, is this a plane crash? Is this a rocket attack, a UFO? But when it comes to the Urals region in Chelyabinsk, the city in Russia, it's actually a meteor shower. This is what took place this morning. Really stunning images that you're seeing there right now. Now, what we know from officials, according to officials and eyewitnesses, is that a series of explosions, possibly 5 to 6, took place when this meteor exploded in the air, raining down molten hot debris onto the ground. Now, this has caused widespread panic in at least 3 cities. Witnesses reported the walls of houses shaking, windows being blown out, cell phones even reportedly stopped working in some areas. There has been some concern about potential small injuries at a school, unconfirmed, so some schools are reportedly being evacuated. We're also hearing that a zinc factory was hit by a piece of the meteor, but no leaks reported so far. The biggest issue right now is the falling debris and the smoke, the black smoke that people are reporting that is hanging in the air. So very, very shocking. One interesting fact of note is that the world is closely watching another meteor that's supposed to graze past the Earth later on this evening. That's the size of an Olympic-sized swimming pool. This is an unrelated incident.
On the ground, chaos as fragments slammed into Earth. Witnesses say they thought a war had broken out.
It streaked across the Siberian sky and smashed into the Earth with the power of an atomic bomb, injuring more than 1,000 people, mostly from broken glass.
And in a startling coincidence, Earth has had its closest encounter with a large asteroid in living memory this morning. The 45-metre asteroid skimmed past Earth, just 27,000 kilometres away, but it's a record close call.
But that's closer than some of our orbiting satellites.
Well, it has certainly been a strange 24 hours for things coming at us from space. The giant asteroid that came close to Earth, the meteor that exploded in Russia, and now tonight's breaking news, a meteor streaking across the Bay Area sky.
Reports are coming in from around the bay, but mostly on the peninsula. A bright blue light streaking across the western sky around 7:40 tonight.
It was mighty bright up there in the sky. I've seen plenty of meteors over the years, and I don't recall seeing one with such a tail and for quite as bright, I guess, of a light as this particular one was.
You can see this wave of green moving up from the peninsula also into the North Bay. That's a sign of some of that unusual activity in the atmosphere. This is not fog.
An NBC6 viewer was in the right place at the right time when a meteor was passing overhead. This is video of that meteor as it happened. Now, reports of similar sightings happened all across the state, from Jacksonville all the way down to Key West.
Witch's brew of weather is marching across the country. Arctic air, snow, ice, even the threat of tornadoes. 30 million people, 19 states from Arizona to Illinois are in the storm zone.
Gold Coast beaches have been battered with big seas carving away at the coastline, causing the worst erosion the tourist city has seen in years.
All Gold Coast beaches were closed for a third day. The pounding surf is stripping away sand. Dunes at Miami are collapsing.
Violent thunderstorms and torrential rains have caused chaos across much of southern Europe. In Italy, the Sicilian city of Catania was turned into a raging river with strong waters carrying away vehicles. Some 50 litres of rain per square metre fell in just half an hour.
A giant sinkhole or crack or fissure or landslide, we don't know, that happened on State Highway 89 about 5 o'clock this morning. Apparently, the earth just sunk at this point about 5 or 6 feet right on the highway here. We're also told that throughout the morning, it's actually been getting worse. There have been other drops in the earth here.
Heavy rain and damaging winds have begun battering parts of northern New South Wales, where residents are on flood watch.
Right now it is impacting with rain and thunderstorms, hundreds of kilometres of coastline stretching from Byron Bay down towards Taree. We've had wind speeds of around 126 kilometres.
Sydney has been smashed by savage storms with hundreds of homes damaged. The wild weather has stretched from Kiama on the south coast to Kempsey and Grafton in the north.
Thousands of residents in Western Australia's Pilbara region are being warned to stay inside as severe tropical cyclone Rusty edges towards land. Winds will reach up to 250 kilometres an hour when Rusty makes landfall tonight or early tomorrow. Torrential rain and massive storm surges are expected.
Are we in the time, the season, the moment in time where some of this prophecy is being fulfilled right in front of our eyes? Wars and rumors of war. For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be earthquakes in various places. And there will be famines and troubles. These are the beginnings of sorrows. In fact, I am alarmed at what I see. I have never seen the global atmosphere so charged, so uncertain, so tenuous as it is now. What we're seeing is this inundation of earthquakes, and we're getting 7 point something on the Richter scale almost on a weekly basis. I've never seen that before. I mean, yeah, we get one or two of these things, but not every week, and not all over the planet. And we go back to that prophecy, earthquakes in various places. We're seeing these things every single week, and they're not going away. They're almost burgeoning. Now, the earthquakes are only one dynamic of it.
A report out of Florida tonight is a reminder to millions of Americans there is a strange and dangerous vulnerability underground: sinkholes. A man was in his bedroom. The earth opened up beneath the house and he fell in.
Horror struck the little house on Faithway Drive just before midnight.
The house just fell through.
These 911 tapes reveal the terror inside that house.
The bedroom floor just collapsed and my brother-in-law is in there and he's underneath the house.
A sinkhole some 30 feet across and up to 100 feet deep opened up directly beneath Jeff Bush's bedroom. His brother, Jeremy, says he tried desperately to save him.
I jumped in the hole and was trying to dig him out. I couldn't find him.
But we've just learned that rescue mission has been called off. That man swallowed up by that sinkhole simply can't be found. And tension is rising as more and more homes here are deemed dangerous. This house and now this house are also in danger of being swallowed up by the same sinkhole that took Bush and his bedroom 100 feet underground Thursday. His body possibly lost forever. How rare is what we've seen here?
Well, certainly you get at least dozens of sinkholes a year, but to have one occur right in the center of a home, and certainly to injure and even kill somebody, I've never heard of that happening before.
Friday at 5 o'clock, fears that a San Francisco neighborhood could collapse. Right now, multiple sinkholes are creating a very dangerous situation.
There are at least a dozen sinkholes, not only in people's backyards, but also in their garages and underneath their homes where they can't even fully see how big they are just yet. And the concern with those sinkholes is that there are so many, not only on this side of the street, but also across the street. And since we can't see underneath the street, they're not sure if they're all going to connect. And that's what could cause the collapse.
Ancient Egyptian plagues return. That cloud back there You see them coming. For folks that don't believe that the Bible is real, the Bible don't lie. These things are so big they look like little birds.
A 5.5 magnitude earthquake in China's southwestern Yunnan province has injured at least 30 people on Sunday. 3 of the injured are reportedly in serious condition. According to state media, the quake destroyed almost 1,800 homes and damaged more than 83,000 others. Over 30 aftershocks have been reported.
The focus of the intense rain has moved north to Mackay and the Wide Bay, where more than 300 millimetres has fallen in some centres.
At Eton, west of Mackay, 24 hours of rain. It's taken over roads, swallowed cars and inundated cane fields. In low-lying areas, there's water as far as the eye can see. More than 300 millimetres fell across parts of the region by 9 o'clock this morning, and it's not over yet.
Forecasters are also monitoring the possibility of a cyclone forming in the Coral Sea.
At least 9 people have been found dead following a powerful blizzard that swept through the northern Japanese island of Hokkaido over the weekend. Rescue workers near the town of Nakashibetsu uncovered a family of 4. All died in their car as it was engulfed in snow. In the same town, a 23-year-old woman was found frozen to death near her stalled car. In the town of Yubetsu, a 53-year-old man was found dead in a snowy field. He had wrapped his body around his 9-year-old daughter to protect her from the cold.
Residents of the Florida town where a sinkhole claimed a man's life have a new reason to be nervous. A second sinkhole has appeared in Seffner, Florida.
Growing concerns tonight over several large sinkholes in San Francisco's West Portal neighborhood.
Tonight, winds are howling along the East Coast. Low-lying areas in New Jersey already underwater, now under voluntary evacuations.
See how big this massive snowstorm is tonight. There it is on the East Coast, the storm as seen from space.
We are getting tremendous wind off the ocean here. The ocean that, by the way, is getting closer.
Wind so strong, the federal government shut down.
It struck New England after churning past New Jersey, where winds of up to 70 miles an hour caused tidal flooding that left some shoreline communities underwater.
Developing tonight, Florida could soon be in for a major invasion of mega mosquitoes. These aren't just ordinary bugs. They're big. They actually sting when they bite.
Scientists say they are coming this summer. Horror movies have built plots around supersized insects for years, but this time, real research tells us giant mosquitoes 20 times the size of what you're used to could invade Central Florida in just a few months.
There is another war taking place in the Middle East, and this one has nothing to do with brutal dictators, terrorism, or a people's occupied land. This war has to do with rats, and we're not talking about just any rats. We're talking about very large rats, some as heavy as 5 kilograms. That's about 11 pounds. Rats as big as cats. Millions of them roaming around Tehran, according to officials. The problem so serious that Iran has literally declared war on these rodents. They've called out the army sniper units in an effort to pick off these rats, one rodent at a time. Why are these rats getting so big? 2 schools of thought. Some say the rats have become immune to the rat poison the city is using, and the chemicals inside their body is causing them to mutate.
A day to most definitely stay out of the water. A shark warning closing beaches in the United States. Well, one shark off the south coast of Florida, but thousands of them.
Now, we want to show you the fast and urgent fight underway by doctors in states across this country tonight. They are trying to contain a new bacteria, a kind of ordinary bacteria antibiotics don't reach, and even the CDC has called it a nightmare.
These almost untreatable superbugs alter other bacteria so that they fight off drugs as well.
It's resistant to virtually all antibiotics. So when an individual gets this microbe and it invades the blood or invades tissue, curing them becomes very difficult.
Fisheries experts are investigating what caused the death of thousands of fish on the Eyre Peninsula. The juvenile leather jackets have washed up along a 10-kilometre stretch of beaches south of Port Neal over the last week.
Absolutely incredible. I've never seen a fish kill like it in all my time travelling around the countryside.
A rare comet makes its debut in the northern hemisphere, visible to the naked eye. It will give you the best view you could have in years. In fact, some astronomers are calling 2013 the year of the comet as they identify more and more of these flying through space. Does it, though, raise questions about our safety here on Earth?
Dead pigs have been found floating in a river near Shanghai. Officials have launched an investigation. They say there is no evidence the pigs were dumped or had been infected. Water quality tests are now being carried out as the river supplies Shanghai residents with their drinking water.
More than 12,000 dead pigs found floating in one of China's main rivers.
Locals have been finding large numbers of dead pigs floating in their waters. Nobody seems to know why they've died or how they got there.
The Israeli Agriculture Ministry said a locust swarm of biblical proportions had crossed into Israel from Egypt and said it was spraying pesticides to try to contain the problem 2 weeks ahead of the Passover holiday.
This particular group was swept in from Egypt. The locust invasion is in full swing with just 2 weeks to go before Passover. That holiday celebrates the biblical story of the ancient Jews leaving Egypt after Egypt was struck with 10 plagues. The 8th plague was the plague of locusts.
It's happening again. A big space rock the size of a city block is expected to head our way next hour. We know that this meteor exploded over Russia just a month ago, last month, and now we have this, and there was an asteroid last weekend. Is this just sort of a weird time, and should we be concerned about a potential impact?
And manatees along the southwest coast of Florida are dying in record numbers.
Officials say this is a catastrophe, as they sometimes find as many as 10 dead manatees a day. Already in just 2 months, they're approaching the record killed in an entire year.
And we have breaking news out west. A magnitude 5.1 earthquake has rattled a large section of Southern California. There are reports of aftershocks.
Mark Mihal and some friends were playing around at the Ambrier golf course last Friday when suddenly Mihal was missing. When his playing partners heard his calls for help, they realized that he had been swallowed by a sinkhole.
As his golf buddies looked on in disbelief, Mihal found himself being sucked 18 feet under the ground, fracturing his shoulder.
Dead fish are washing up on the shores of Rio de Janeiro's main lagoon, and no one is quite sure why.
The Rodrigo de Freitas lagoon used to be teeming with life, but not anymore. It seems that everything that used to thrive in the water has been killed.
America has issued a blunt new warning tonight to Iran about nuclear weapons.
And sharp words today about what the administration sees as America's two greatest threats, Iran and Syria. Time is running out for a peaceful solution to that nation's nuclear ambitions.
Big nations can't bluff, and presidents of the United States cannot and do not bluff. And President Barack Obama is not bluffing.
Now to North Korea, a nation that has nuclear weapons and is tonight threatening to use them against the United States, vowing to attack Washington and engulf the nation's capital, quote, in a sea of flames. As you can imagine, this outburst has prompted a strong response from the White House.
The United States is bolstering its missile defense on the West Coast by nearly 50% because of the intensifying threat posed by the secretive nation.
Breaking news now from the war in Syria, and this could be significant. Reports that chemical weapons have been used in that conflict. 25 are dead in a rebel chemical attack in northern Syria.
Heavy rains in Brazil triggered devastating mudslides on Monday, killing at least 16 people. The mountainous region of Rio de Janeiro state was hit by 24 hours of continuous rainfall. More than a month's worth of rain fell in just 24 hours.
Hailstorms with hail the size of eggs have struck southern China. The storm with wind gusts of more than 100 miles per hour have left a trail of destruction in the province of Guangdong.
An unusual tornado and hailstorm has killed 24 people in southern China's Guangdong province. Local officials say 272 people were injured, with 158 of them hospitalized. The wild combination of thunderstorm, hail, and a tornado hit the region with gusting winds of 110 miles an hour. Hailstone the size of golf balls and eggs smashed windshields, as this was the strongest tornado to hit the city since record-keeping began.
A discovery off the coast of Chile that has baffled authorities. Thousands of langoustines washed up in central Concepcion province. Beaches have been covered red as the Dublin Bay prawns were found. Investigators are trying to find out what has killed so many crustaceans in this case.
Thousands of dead fish have washed up on Adelaide's southern beaches.
It's Adelaide's turn. Little leather jackets litter the shore, just like Eyre Peninsula beaches earlier this month. Locals have observed them from Christie's Beach south to Maslins.
Never seen it before and not sure why.
Yeah, wondering about what the cause is.
At least 80 people were injured, too critically, as a series of devastating tornadoes ripped across two states. The twisters tore through towns in New South Wales and Victoria, destroying dozens of homes. The trail of damage stretched 40 kilometres.
They were watching the clouds and saw it forming.
Coming for us.
Daniel Clark and his mate wouldn't be laughing for long. Their encounter with this force of nature just kept getting closer and closer.
Oh, stop. Power line just went.
It was building in strength, in speed. It was time to go. With it almost on top of them, they spin the car around and are driving for their lives, hammered by debris.
Get going.
Racing to flee a tornado, packing winds of up to 250 kilometres an hour.
Unbelievable. I can't even describe how crazy it was to be amongst it.
A mini tornado just happening between the trees. This is like crazy. Oh my God. Look at the tornado!
Along the border, several twisters touched down after 7 o'clock last night.
Whoa! That is insane!
And this was the result. Roofs, fences, homes were ripped to pieces. This was a demolition.
Weather forecasters say twisters with such force are rare in Victoria.
Britain is preparing to shiver through its coldest March weekend in 50 years. Blizzard-like conditions have claimed at least one life.
This is springtime in Britain. The calendar may say winter is over, but the weather says otherwise. A huge swathe of the country is under snow, and the forecasters say there's more to come. Britain is being told to brace itself. It's hard to believe British summertime begins in just over a week, because for much of Britain, this is a winter that just won't end.
Just outside Denver, as someone said to me today on the way into work, where is spring? More than half the country getting hit with this newest nasty storm. Hundreds of miles of roads already shut down from Colorado to Kansas tonight. Snow and ice is returning to windshields across America tonight, with winter storm warnings and watches up across more than a dozen states now. And in the South this evening, fears of tornadoes because of all this.
It's the winter that just won't release us from its icy grip.
Begin with some breaking news tonight. A flash of light that experts are saying was probably a meteor was seen streaking across the sky along the East Coast. There are reports from Virginia up to Boston and beyond. More reports are coming in tonight. It happened just after 8 o'clock.
There are at least 350 reports of this possible meteor.
While there's been heavy snow in parts of Europe, including the UK, in Kiev it's been so bad that a state of emergency has been declared. 1 month's snowfall, which is about half a metre, has covered the Ukrainian capital in just 24 hours. The city's paralysed.
A man is fighting for life after being crushed by a tree branch during last night's severe storms in southeast Queensland. Several other people were hurt and dozens of homes damaged when the storm hit with fierce winds and thousands of lightning strikes.
Bangladesh is reeling after a powerful tornado tore through villages in the east of the country. The latest reports are that 20 people are dead, 200 are injured and hundreds more are without homes.
More than 20 people were killed and hundreds injured. The ferocity of the wind has left many villagers in shock. The wind was so powerful, even plaques were overturned.
Fierce storm this evening, more than half of the country in its path before it's over. And this video just in tonight from Orlando, Florida. Look and listen to this. Extreme winds blowing right through those front doors at a Lowe's store, blowing shopping carts like toys. You can see the heavy rains outside. In the west tonight, the storm dropping more than a foot of snow in parts of Colorado. Then moving on to Kansas City.
Very unpleasant form of deja vu. Again, a dangerous sinkhole opening up in a residential neighborhood in Florida, and this is going on right near where the sinkhole swallowed a man asleep in his bed.
Record amounts of snow are still falling, and just watch. We have a time-lapse video of the snow piling up and continuing to pile up overnight in St. Louis. And it just keeps coming in parts of the country.
We've got some sheep under the drift here. We've been lifting about 40 yesterday digging them out. So what I'm doing is I'm using the dog now. He'll use his nose and hopefully we'll see an air pocket. It's third day for some of these sheep and they're heavily pregnant. They're weakened, they're carrying a lot of snow on them. And this is a disaster. It's a disaster for rural farmers out here on the mountain. You know, my family's been collecting sheep the other day. They've got 150 missing. We haven't counted ours, so this is the problem that we're looking at. We don't know what's under all this. We're just finding the odd one. There could be hundreds of sheep lost in Wales. We've dug 40 out yesterday. We'll dig a few out today. You know, this is all we've got is a spade and just brute force, you know, brute power. It's a killer. It is an absolute killer. I've never seen anything like this. It's just bloody heartbreaking. How many more? I don't know.
Visitors to Adelaide's premier beach aren't quite sure what to make of it.
Something totally new, never seen this before.
Hundreds of tons of seagrass washed up onto the beach over the weekend, covering the shoreline. The council's been under the pump trying to clear up the beach before Easter. It's not the only part of the coast that's fallen foul to the Great Brown Plague. Beaches on Fleurieu Peninsula have been coated with seagrass as well. Experts believe the big wash-up of seagrass, fish and dolphins in the past few weeks is no coincidence.
The fact that it's occurring in lots of different bits of the South Australian coastline around the same sort of time points to something that's a big cause.
And just in, a magnitude 6.2 earthquake has just struck in Guatemala, only about 6 miles to the southeast of its capital city. That's according to the U.S. Geological Survey.
A magnitude 5.5 earthquake hit the southwest of Pinotepa Nacional on the Pacific coast of Mexico. Less than 10 minutes later, a second quake hit with magnitude 5.1.
An earthquake measuring 6.1 on the Richter scale has struck Taiwan. There are reports of a 72-year-old woman being killed by a collapsed temple wall. At least 19 people have been injured.
Dramatic upheaval in the earth today on a small island off the coast of Washington state. Residents say it began with a mysterious sound, almost like thunder, and then something terrifying. The earth seemed to crack open.
It was just before 4 o'clock in the morning when the slide hit with such force, homeowners thought it must be a massive earthquake.
I looked out and noticed that we had no more trees blocking the view and half the yard was gone.
One home was swept away and nearly 3 dozen are now evacuated.
A sinkhole suddenly opens up, swallowing a security guard. The horrifying moment captured by cameras in Shenzhen City, China. Yang Shibing was buried as people tried to reach him.
2 people have been killed and another seriously injured after a wall collapsed in Melbourne on Thursday. Witnesses said there was a sudden gust of wind.
I heard this loud noise, this really loud noise, like a thunder, like bam, like that, and I saw dust everywhere and I rushed out. There were people running towards the wall. It was really bad. It was like a war zone.
Police believe it was toppled by a sudden squall of wind which hit the city between 2:30 and 3, peaking at 102 kilometres an hour.
The UN is appealing for more than $41 million to eliminate a severe plague of locusts in Madagascar. Half of the money is needed by June to try to save the country's crop production. Around half of Madagascar is currently infested, with each swarm made up of billions of insects.
American stealth bombers have just finished practicing an attack on the Korean peninsula. The B-2 bombers, capable of carrying nuclear weapons, flew 6,500 miles from Whiteman Air Force Base outside of Kansas City, Missouri, all the way to South Korea. Pilots then dropped inactive, inert bombs and then turned around and flew back home. This all comes as North Korea ramps up its threats.
A threat, for instance, to carry out a preemptive nuclear strike on the United States mainland.
North Korea is cutting its final official line of communication with South Korea, saying war could break out at any time. My heart is burning with vengeful thoughts, this man says. Such provocation can no longer be allowed. I'm ready to take part in a great war of justice to reduce the US mainland to ashes.
Southern suburbs beachgoers are demanding answers as dead fish continue to wash ashore.
The scale of the mystery continues to grow.
Thousands of fish are washing up dead.
The Indian Ocean island of Mauritius has been hit by severe floods. At least 10 people have been confirmed dead after over 150 millimetres of torrential rain lashed the low-lying capital of Port Louis in under 2 hours, and has now seen over half the monthly average rain for March in just 1 day.
A new report released this morning from the Climate Commission says climate change is already increasing the intensity and frequency of extreme weather events, and it's only going to get worse.
A new report from Australia's Climate Commission has warned extreme weather events will become more severe. It's a sobering prediction.
Twisters, floods, bushfires, tropical cyclones and record-breaking heat. The Climate Commission warns there's far worse to come.
The report also found that heavy rainfall events are increasing globally.
Future tropical cyclones are expected to be more powerful.
Victorians can expect more severe weather in the years to come, including extreme heat waves, bushfires, heavy rain and storms. The Climate Commission's latest report shows we're already experiencing levels not expected for decades.
A month's worth of rain in a day has led to deadly flash floods in and around the Argentine capital, Buenos Aires.
Flash floods in La Plata, the capital of Buenos Aires province, have left close to 60 people dead and forced 1,500 to evacuate their homes. People drowned while trapped in their cars, and some were electrocuted as the water rose at an alarming rate. Local media report that 400 millimetres of rain fell in 2 hours, flooding low-lying areas of La Plata and surrounding districts. Weather forecasts predict more rain to come.
Sydney's dream run of sunny weather has come to a sudden end, with a morning downpour causing peak hour chaos.
Most of Cronulla's 117 millimetres of rain in the past 48 hours fell this morning. Today's rain follows the state's hottest summer on record. A Climate Commission report out today blames climate change for the weather extremes.
Holidaymakers may have been confused when they awoke this morning. They were in Torquay and not by the Red Sea. It was thousands of tons of earth collapsing which changed the colour of the water and the landscape of these cliffs.
The section of the beach underneath the cliffs here has been closed for some time, and there have been a number of smaller rockfalls recently, but the one last night was the largest by quite some way.
All over the Easter weekend it's been gradually coming down, just like a river of rocks at some point. There used to be a rock in the sea that's not there anymore.
Submerged 15 dolphins have died in recent weeks as Adelaide's marine mystery deepens. Meantime, the mass fish deaths along the south coast are also creating new waves.
A special task force has been set up to solve the mystery behind a mass fish kill along Adelaide's coastline.
Up from North Haven to Maslins.
The areas are still littered with dead fish. Over the last couple of weeks, tens of thousands of fish, as well as penguins and even dolphins, have washed up.
Visitors to Victoria's Gorge Walkway have noticed a strange sight just below the surface recently. Hundreds of dead squid.
How they died and how they got here, a mystery.
The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization is calling for urgent emergency funding to combat a plague of locusts in Madagascar. Locust infestations are threatening the livelihoods of 13 million people in Madagascar, more than half the country's population. The UN agency is calling for funding totaling $41.5 million to carry out a 3-year emergency program to address the crisis in the island nation. If untreated, the locust infestations may wipe out food crops and grazing lands and directly affect locals' ability to provide for themselves.
Around half of Madagascar is currently infested, with each swarm made up of billions of insects.
A magnitude 5.4 earthquake hit Valera, Aurora at past 10 this morning.
An earthquake struck Mexico this morning. The U.S. Geological Survey said a magnitude 5.5 earthquake.
A magnitude 7.1 earthquake has struck Indonesia's sparsely populated West Papua province.
2 people have been killed and 8 remain missing after heavy rain and flooding devastated Peru. As many as 40 homes were damaged and residents were forced to flee the rural district of Namora. There were similar scenes in Chuota. The beginning of April marks the traditional end of Peru's rainy season, but the National Weather Service has forecast more rainfall in the coming days.
A powerful earthquake in southwest Iran has left more than 30 people dead and some 800 others injured. The 6.3 magnitude quake struck close to Iran's only nuclear power station in Bushehr and was felt across the Gulf in Dubai, Abu Dhabi and Bahrain. Several strong aftershocks were reported within an hour.
the Russian city being eaten alive. Cars, buses, and trucks disappear beneath the earth as they are swallowed by giant sinkholes. Citizens of Samara live in daily fear of the ground disappearing beneath them. Dozens of holes have sprung up across the city in recent weeks. The sinkholes have left a trail of devastation and reportedly claimed one life. They may look like stills from an apocalyptic horror film, but these images have become a daily reality for residents in a Russian city. The yawning underground caverns are all believed to have sprung up in recent weeks, swallowing cars, buses and claiming at least one life. The massive craters have appeared in car parks, busy intersections, by the sides of roads, and on major and minor thoroughfares.
A sinkhole swallows a number of homes in Russia. The houses all fell into this 45-foot deep sinkhole in a little town in central Russia. One resident said he heard a rumbling noise and then saw a tree outside his window just disappear.
An earthquake measuring 6.1 on the Richter scale has struck Taiwan.
A powerful earthquake rocked southwestern Japan this morning. The magnitude 6.3 quake struck near the port city of Kobe. At least 23 people were injured, 7 seriously. Most of the injured are said to be elderly.
North Korea continues to cause unease following reports from South Korea that 2 intermediate-range missiles on mobile launchers have been placed and hidden on the east coast of the country.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order. Create a new world order.
At one point we heard the first explosion. No one's really sure what it was.
There's gotta be people hurt out.
That magnitude 7.8 earthquake which struck the Iranian-Pakistani border. Early reports say there have been fatalities. Iranian officials say they expect deaths to be in the hundreds. The quake was felt as far away as New Delhi in India and the Gulf cities of Dubai and Manama.
The 7.8 magnitude quake was near the southwest city of Khash, close to the Pakistani border, the strongest to strike Iran for 40 years. It is the second earthquake in 7 days to strike Iran.
Following breaking news, the earthquakes, they hit Oklahoma early this morning.
But a lot of people saying that they thought it was thunder outside or they just thought that they were dreaming this, but no dreaming here. 5 earthquakes rocking central and northeast Oklahoma, and these things were felt all the way from here in Oklahoma City down south to Chickasha, Weatherford, Fairview, Stillwater, even on over to Tulsa. 15 minutes later, right at 2 this morning, a very strong 4.3 earthquake shook the Oklahoma City metro area.
Dead fish are washing up along the Lake Erie shoreline. What are they telling you about the amount of dead fish? It's overwhelming, isn't it?
It's pretty unbelievable to be down here and to see all these dead fish. It's the worst fish die-off experts say we've seen in decades.
Fish are turning up dead in a popular central Wisconsin fishing spot.
This is all happening at the Big O Plain Reservoir just outside Mosinee. All the dead fish there are causing quite a scene.
Where thousands of birds mysteriously dove straight into the ground.
More marine life washing up along our coast, with another 2 dolphins discovered today, as well as a rare fish. With the death count now at 26 dolphins, and experts mortified by the saga, saying it's unprecedented in this state.
Strong aftershocks have rocked Pakistan following the 7.8 magnitude earthquake registered in Iran on Tuesday. The Pakistani town of Mashhad has been totally destroyed, according to local media. Death tolls remain unclear in the remote border region.
A strong sandstorm moved in on Tuesday afternoon into northwestern China's Xinjiang region, blanketing much of the area with a reddish haze. China's National Meteorological Center said a cold front brought the sand from Xinjiang's deserts into the cities. Visibility is less than 100 feet.
with another situation that's happened on the south side where the earth has literally opened up.
Patrick Elwood standing by at that sinkhole. 96th and Houston is the location.
That is a sinkhole right there. There are 3 vehicles in that hole. The fire department, the police department, the water department, Night Corps, all on the scene. A lot of people who live here interested, obviously, in what's happening.
All around that sinkhole. Chicago right now is under a flash flood warning. 3 to 5 inches of rain have fallen in the last 24 hours. 1 to 2 more inches are expected. So this is
we want to bring you up to date on some other breaking news this hour. There's been a powerful earthquake off the coast of Japan. What we're reading is a magnitude 7.
A 6.6 magnitude earthquake has struck China's southwestern Sichuan province. Scores of people have been killed and over 2,000 injured. The quake was felt in neighbouring provinces, causing people to flee buildings in search of safety.
Media reports are quoting officials suggesting that hundreds may have been killed.
A number of aftershocks followed, the strongest one just 5 minutes later and measuring 5.1.
Authorities say 6,000 troops are heading to the area to assist rescue efforts. Most of the deaths happened in Lushan as buildings toppled, power lines fell and water supplies were severed.
Villages were reportedly flattened in the magnitude 6.6 jolt. The force was so powerful it shook the earth at least 10 centimetres per second. Survivors say it rumbled on for a long, terrifying minute. Many people didn't have time to escape.
Thousands of residents of the Argentine city of Santiago del Estero in the early hours of Sunday morning caught a glimpse of a suspected meteor that lit up the sky above the city. The event took place at about 3:20 a.m. local time. Argentine authorities believe the spectacular fireball was caused by a meteor entering the Earth's atmosphere and disintegrating. Some witnesses reported to local newspapers that they felt a slight tremor soon after seeing the meteorite. According to local media reports, police in the area were inundated with phone calls from frightened residents.
The suspected meteor lighting up the sky. Residents say they initially got a fright, feeling a slight tremor soon after seeing the spectacular fireball.
A very different kind of natural disaster, deadly flooding in the Midwest. There are states of emergency and disaster declarations in at least half a dozen states right now.
Heavy rains have hammered the heartland all week. Many forced to evacuate their homes. In River Grove, Illinois, canoes replaced cars. Parts of Illinois saw a record 8 inches of rain on Thursday, completely submerging parts of Chicago.
The worst flood in recorded history in parts of the Midwest, and at this hour they are bracing for more rain. Already so bad, this flooding, that people in western Michigan are seeing fish swimming by office windows, ducks as well.
Authorities are at the scene of a sinkhole in Acton Avenue at Woodville. The stormwater drain has collapsed several metres underground, leaving a Stobie pole leaning at a precarious angle.
driving from Elgin towards Lossiemouth going home, and I noticed a massive big cloud in the sky, and as I was going towards it I realised it was a giant sandstorm. So as I got closer, the sand was just getting thicker and thicker, and it was down to pretty much zero visibility. It's nothing I've really seen in this area before.
A pretty strong quake just off the coast. Now here's the border between Indonesia and Papua New Guinea. A 6.8 magnitude quake, which was only 7 kilometers in depth. This is extremely shallow.
As for a Wolcott family, a meteorite, there it is, crashed right through their roof. Larry Beck said he thought it was just a rock dropped by a plane on Friday night.
When scientists confirmed otherwise.
The darkening really piqued my interest that this was something that came down through the atmosphere at a very rapid speed and was vaporizing on its outer shell.
The meteorite crashed into Larry's home around 10:30 Friday night. The rock never fell all the way through. A copper pipe stopped it.
A loud boom was heard along the shoreline just before that meteorite came crashing down.
Those experts say it most definitely could have been that meteorite that really caused that sonic boom heard even on the Connecticut shoreline.
I heard a rumble and then my whole house shook. Do you know what that is?
This is the 5th one to hit Connecticut and the 3rd to hit a house here, which is pretty unusual.
Of a massive sinkhole in Lowell, Vermont.
Mines Road in Lowell is closed indefinitely, and for good reason. Much of it isn't even there anymore. But a family of 3 were driving home late Saturday night in 2 different cars and ended up at the bottom of the hole.
But the sinkhole that swallowed the Richardson family is 30 feet wide by 15 feet deep. A neighbor told me that Mr. Richardson was able to think fast when he saw his wife's headlights disappear and swerve in order to avoid crushing his wife and son.
Now in Boulder at Folsom Street between Colorado Avenue and Taft. These crews expected to work late into the night trying to repair a sinkhole that formed near Folsom Field. Air Tracker 7 over the scene this morning as crews began assessing the damage. The hole itself is about 15 feet by 30 feet, but Folsom Street and the sidewalk along it are cracked all the way to Taft Drive.
It's a massive sinkhole in Boulder. Air Tracker 7 showing the extensive damage to the road.
As you can see, Folsom Street behind me still torn up. The sinkhole in the center of the road.
A 6.2 magnitude earthquake, which has hit New Zealand. It
rattled New Zealand's Kermadec Islands, 124 kilometres south of Raoul Island.
From Australia to Norway, Japan to the U.S., thousands of people have reported seeing unidentified flying objects.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And produced pictures they're convinced can prove it. Several hundred of the believers assembled a few blocks from the White House to present their findings, including a former Canadian defense minister.
I say without equivocation, we are not alone in the cosmos. We have neighbors. We should try to get to understand them.
And phoning in his testimony, one of the American astronauts who landed on the moon.
There's a number of us that have had these types of experiences to say, yes, we're not alone. We have been visited.
A 20-foot deep sinkhole opened up in Taylorsville last night, forcing traffic lanes to be closed until at least Monday. Crews have been out there working to repair the hole. Traffic is being directed around the site while road crews work to fill the sinkhole. All north and southbound lanes on 32nd West and 54th South will be closed.
The community of Bayou Corn is making headlines around the world. Since it formed last August, the sinkhole in Bayou Corn has continued to grow.
It's 160 feet deep, but 13 acres wide.
And the ground opening up, swallowing trees, wildlife, and threatening hundreds of homes.
It really sounds like something out of a movie, but this is the reality. This geological event is truly one of a kind.
Desplazamiento de un bólido muy luminoso de dirección que venía aumentando de volumen, dirección de sur a este, y que se desplazaba, digamos, en sentido.
The past 20 years, our Skyscan has caught some interesting things. Bugs crawling across the glass in front of the camera. We've also had some incidents with birds. But this morning, something quite strange came up from the southwest, and we've slowed it down a couple of times to show you this interesting feature that streaked across Perth skies early this morning. This Skyscan takes a frame every minute, so it took 4 minutes for this object to cross the skies of Perth. And speaking to the observatory, they're convinced that it's not a meteor.
A huge tornado has struck the Emilia-Romagna region of northern Italy. Amateur footage from small towns near the regional capital of Bologna showed the storm tearing through the countryside. Farmers who were caught out in their fields were blasted by the winds, as well as pummeled by a barrage of hailstones. Italian media reported 11 people wounded and damage to several properties. The governor of Emilia-Romagna has asked the central government to declare a state of emergency. For people living here, when it rains it pours. Around the same time, a 3.8 magnitude earthquake was detected in nearby Ferrara.
An inferno in paradise.
Of wildfires so fast and furious, they have turned parts of California into a tinderbox.
Midway between Malibu and Santa Barbara, firefighters go door to door. Nearly 600 firefighters fighting a ground war, a losing battle as 50-mile-an-hour winds sweep through dry brush.
Like this right here. Going embers all over the place.
The blaze has grown by 7,000 acres just today. Normally, these hot desert winds come at the end of summer, early fall. But this year, they're here a good 4 or 5 months early.
This is a very early start to fire season. We're seeing conditions and fires that you normally see in October. Here, it is only May.
Adelaide's Indian summer has weather forecasters reaching for the record books. This week's unseasonable warm spell could be the longest in 92 years. Farmers across the state are increasingly desperate for rain.
Not since the early days of the roaring 20s have we faced such warm temperatures in May. We're looking at 4 days in a row over 25, 3 of those over 28 degrees.
This time of year we'd expect temperatures to be on average around about 19 degrees, and we're seeing almost 10 degrees above average for 3 days in a row.
So evidently there is a tornado about 30 miles northeast of here, and this is what the sky has been doing for the last half hour. It's non-stop lightning with no thunder. I have never seen this before in my life.
Isn't that weird? Yeah. Yeah. No, we're outside. Matt said it's like an episode of War of the Worlds.
There was a spectacular sight in the sky today for those lucky enough to be close to see it. A rare solar eclipse called an annular eclipse was only visible in places like Australia, Papua New Guinea, and the Solomon Islands. It's known as the Ring of Fire.
A 6.2 magnitude earthquake has struck southern Iran. It occurred at a depth of 36 kilometers near the port city of Josk. The quake has been followed by at least 5 strong aftershocks, the biggest one measuring 5 on the Richter scale.
An eye-popping force of nature had people fleeing for their lives in a small Manitoba lakeside community overnight. A destructive 3-story wave of ice roared ashore, the frightening result of high winds combining with the spring melt.
Friday night, and people were settling in for the weekend when out of nowhere, a wave of ice roared ashore like a freight train, crushing 12 homes and cottages, damaging many others. These ice chunks smashed their way through buildings like they were made of matchsticks.
It sounded like, I've never been in a tornado, but I'm going to assume that it sounds something like that. It's just a big roar, and you can see it coming. And you keep thinking, oh, it's not coming any farther, it's going to stop, but it just kept on coming.
That is crazy.
I wonder how they're going to stop it.
And now to a neighborhood that is slowly being swallowed by the earth. An entire subdivision where the homes are crumbling. Neighbors being told to pack up and leave.
This morning, residents and officials in one Northern California town are mystified, desperately trying to figure out what's caused 7 homes to be swallowed up by the earth. What started as small cracks in the ground gradually opened into small canyons.
All the cracks in the roadway seem to have gotten bigger,
quickly engulfing the Lake County homes and stripping some down to the core. Now the entire community of 29 homes is at risk of collapsing.
It's metastasizing like cancer, and it's spreading out. There's new cracks showing up in areas of the subdivision that weren't affected before.
Even worse, no one knows why it's happening.
To add to the mystery, there is also a dormant volcano in the area, and at least one public works employee has said he believes many of the problems there are caused by that volcano. And of course, scientists are looking at all of this right now, Dan and Biona.
Caused by a volcano. Bizarre. All right, Gio, thank you.
The area around Mexico City is on a volcanic alert this morning. The 17,000-foot volcano became more active over the weekend. It has been shaking and pumping out steam. The government is sending soldiers and police to the region. They have blocked off a 7-square-mile area.
Let's talk about the space agency NASA. It's released some really fantastic pictures. This is a time-lapse video showing a solar eruption just around the edge of the sun. The gigantic rolling solar wave.
6 people have died as storms sparked as many as 10 tornadoes across northern Texas.
And it turns out at its height, the storm system was visible from space down to the circulation of one tornado just minutes before it dropped down and was reported on the ground. One of a dozen tornadoes to strike last night, some of them producing the most severe and damaging winds on Earth. The death toll has been growing.
We have casualties and severe injuries. We have multiple houses that are no longer there.
So the EF4 tornado had winds of up to 200 miles an hour. The howling and hail began at sundown. Warning sirens shrieked for about 26 minutes before the tornado hit.
Look at it, it's right above us. Holy.
One tornado would have been painful enough, but this morning the National Weather Service confirms that there were 16 of them tearing through northern Texas Wednesday, including this EF4 monster with winds up to 200 miles an hour.
We have seen foundations wiped clean, cars tossed from driveways,
homes obliterated, pounding giant hail.
That's the biggest I've ever seen.
The National Weather Service has issued a tornado watch for more than 30 counties.
More tornadoes expected across the Midwest, all the way from Texas to Michigan. This is happening everywhere.
My cars are gone, my house is gone, but my children are here and we're okay.
Spectacular tornado systems have hit Western Australia's southwest coast today.
Several water spouts, well, dancing. There's the main one with an estimated wind speed of around 90 kilometres per hour.
But what's causing this extreme weather?
8 people have died and 13 were injured from a cyclone that hit Sri Lanka on Wednesday, government officials said. Cyclone Mahasin, which brought heavy rains and landslides to Sri Lanka, was expected to hit Bangladesh and Myanmar later this week.
GDOT crews are fixing a sinkhole to try and get it closed for good.
And here's a look at that sinkhole. The work is going on right now in Gwinnett County on State Route 124.
As the hole grew to 4 feet across, 6 feet deep. People first noticed it last night.
A meteoroid has circled the moon and slammed into its surface, causing the biggest explosion NASA has ever seen. This telescope orbiting the moon captured images of the 40-kilo rock hitting the lunar surface. Scientists say the flash was nearly 10 times brighter than anything they've seen in the 8 years they've been watching.
That same night, cameras detected an unusually high number of meteors blasting through Earth's atmosphere as well.
Well, the sudden die-off of thousands of honeybees has scientists and Minnesota agriculture experts trying to figure out what happened.
In the last few days, thousands of honeybees have died in Winthrop.
Whatever it is, it's affecting the nervous systems of the bee.
Other beekeepers across the country have reported similar problems.
Around 600 dead birds and marine animals, among them some rare species, have been washed up along the coast in recent days, near Chile's northern city of La Serena.
Crews are repairing a 12-foot deep sinkhole that opened up on a street in southern New Jersey at the intersection of Bay Avenue and 20th Street in Ocean City. It's not yet clear what caused the hole to form on Wednesday evening.
Happening right now, construction crews are hard at work trying to repair and fill a gaping sinkhole.
There are several streets like this that crews are working on with sinkholes.
I think this is very strange, very unusual to have I think it was 7.5 inches of rain, and water has never been this high.
The storm came through and left a gaping hole in the road about 25 feet deep.
The photographer snapped this, catching a meteor streaking across the sky above a volcano. We're going to pull out in just a moment. You can see that it's Mount Bromo. In the distance of the photograph, it's one of Indonesia's only active volcanoes.
A 2-mile-wide tornado has swept through a southern suburb of Oklahoma City in the U.S., leaving devastation in its wake. 20 children are among the 91 reported dead.
It was an E4 tornado. It's the second strongest tornado on the scale from E1 to E5. That means winds over 200 miles an hour. The tornado is reportedly 2 miles wide, something you don't see very often here. Wide swaths of residential area have been completely decimated, as though something you'd see after the Hiroshima or Nagasaki atomic bombings. We have rescuers are frantically searching through the rubble, but this is something nearly unprecedented in the area.
The scale of the destruction here is extraordinary.
A tornado so massive and so powerful that it's able to lift pieces of buildings and all the rest, carry them in a cloud above, and eventually deposit them elsewhere. More than 70 miles.
This is terrible. This is war zone terrible.
This was one of about 28 tornadoes that touched down around the area in Oklahoma, Kansas, Illinois, Iowa.
The tornadoes grew to a size I've never seen before, close to a mile wide at times, and it was just so sad because the tornado formed right over the city, and I've never seen anything like it.
You say this is unlike any tornado you've ever seen. What was different about this one?
Dude, that thing is freaking huge. This thing is, it's definitely increasing. It is tearing up everything in its path.
You can't see it, but you can hear it. Terror in the darkness, just as the massive EF5 twister is tearing through Briarwood Elementary. Fifth-grade teacher Robin Dietzick capturing the moment of impact on her cell phone. Listen as she tries to comfort her students, clinging to each other in a darkened bathroom.
It's almost over! I hate this! Honey, it's okay. Oh my God. Oh my God, my house. Oh my God. Oh my God.
More than 24 hours after one of the worst tornadoes in history, rescue crews are still searching for survivors in the ruins of Oklahoma.
Watching what's happening on the screen in utter horror. People who were just a little while ago lived in a town with their neighbors and this morning sent their kids off to school are now on top of piles of completely unrecognizable debris. And they are moving from one place to another, pieces of plywood and insulation and sheetrock. And you wonder, are they hearing sounds from beneath this? There is no ambulance roaring to the rescue. There's no fire truck, no police department coming. Roads are blocked, phone lines are down, cell towers are off, there are fires here and there. Schools have been leveled, where home after home after home after home is reduced to rubble. You look for street signs which no longer exist.
An unusually strong sandstorm swept the Tix County of northwest China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region on Tuesday, damaging houses and crops.
Hailstones attacked several townships in Andin district of Dingxi City. The hailstones lasted for nearly 20 minutes, and the largest being even bigger than an egg. On the same day, many areas in northwest China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region were also hit by hailstones, heavy rains, and sandstorms. More than 533 hectares of crops were damaged by the hailstones.
Terrifying footage shows a tornado tearing its way across the town of Obninsk in central Russia on Thursday, with the funnel cloud touching down in residential areas and passing close to the world's first civilian nuclear plant. Houses were left destroyed by the twister, with dozens of trees and electricity poles being ripped down, leaving residents without electricity.
May continues to bring scant springtime sunshine across Western Europe. Instead, unsettled and unusual weather conditions have hit large parts of the continent. Heavy rain and melting snow causing rivers to overflow has forced hundreds of people out of their homes in eastern Norway. In London, Amsterdam, Frankfurt and Paris, temperatures are between 5 and 10 degrees lower than expected at this time of year. The snowplows are still being used in the Alps. This man in Vosges, eastern France, says he hasn't seen weather like this in his entire life.
Ayer exactamente a las 5:30 de la tarde, este objeto no identificado se precipitó a tierra dejando una estela de humo y luego a su paso de Puno, como ven.
10 News went looking for answers after someone snapped these pictures of an unidentified object flying over the San Diego skyline. Now take a closer look at the left-hand corner of your screen. You can see something there in the sky, and some are calling it Santee's Area 51. One Santee woman tells us her camera broke just moments after she snapped these photos of the object at this historical barn that has some people wondering about visitors from far, far away.
KMPH Newsroom received dozens of calls and emails from viewers
all over the valley about this strange-looking object in the sky. So we sent out one of our photographers who shot this video. Witnesses say it seemed to stay in one place in the sky for nearly 4 hours. Several of you also sent in pictures of the odd orb, and the question everyone is asking is, what is it?
News, the extreme and now deadly weather this holiday weekend. Flash flooding and record rain in the south, nearly 10 inches drenching San Antonio in just 8 hours. Rescue teams working furiously all day. At least one person is dead tonight.
Dangerous flash floods have taken over the city. Almost 10 inches of rain fell in less than 24 hours. Cars and buses engulfed. At every turn, more and more water.
Homes here are submerged, underwater. We've talked to residents that had to be rescued. They've told us they've never seen anything like this before. Literally, refrigerators have been floating in the water, they tell us.
And just a short time ago, reports of a possible tornado touching down in Victoria, Texas. That's south of all of that rain. And in the Northeast tonight, snowplows clearing the roads in Lake Placid, New York, and elsewhere. What is going on here?
What are we going to be, skiing in July? Hundreds of plane passengers had their travel plans thrown into chaos this morning as an unusually thick fog blanketed the city. Several flights had to be diverted to Melbourne until the skies here cleared.
The high-pressure system sitting over Adelaide combined with unforecast showers to produce an unusual radiation fog.
Gold Coast homeowners are facing the worst beach erosion in decades, with many fearing their properties will be washed away. Big swells and high tides are stripping away millions of tonnes of sand and potential tourist dollars.
Millionaires Row is in need. Only a few metres is the difference between mansions towering or toppling over Mermaid and Nobby Beach. Cracks are already forming in buildings.
Only metres of land stands between waterfront mansions and the ocean at Mermaid Beach. Residents were sandbagging again today as the wind and swell picked up. It's the third time this year Gold Coast beaches have been battered, causing the worst erosion in decades. This isn't the image of the Gold Coast businesses want tourists to see. Bookings at some holiday apartments are down by 30%. Beaches are closed again today where access is a problem.
A vast layer of fog descended on Sydney this morning. It threw travel plans into chaos with dozens of flights cancelled or delayed. It also shut down the harbour and made roads dangerous.
Waking to a morning covered by a giant white blanket. A city of 4.5 million people, somewhere down there. The fog rolled in around 4 a.m. and quickly covered the entire Sydney basin. Everything in it. This one was unusually thick and widespread. You could hear the boats, just couldn't see them. At the airport, 30 flights, mainly international, were diverted to Brisbane, Melbourne, even Canberra.
A rare tornado in Italy has swept through the outskirts of Milan, causing much damage. Amateur video from a moving car showed debris flying as lorries battled against the strong winds. Sheet metal was torn off some warehouse roofs. One local was said to have been slightly injured.
We're following some breaking news, a magnitude 4.6 earthquake hitting off the coast of Santa Barbara.
And it sounded like it was loud too, and then the house was just rocking back and forth, and then the rocking stopped and it went into a rolling motion.
Quicker but a lot thicker. That just about sums up Sydney's second bout this week of heavy morning fog. It caused more flight delays and ferry cancellation.
Our most famous landmark simply vanished from view.
Never this thick in the whole of Sydney covered.
Never really 2 days in a row anyway. It is rare according to the Weather Bureau, and we've been stopped in our tracks by moments like this, the sun poking through and bouncing off this CBD building. In a city famous for its spectacular sights, this week they're looking a little different.
The landmarks which make Sydney, Sydney almost unrecognisable.
Large parts of the US have been placed on alert with fears a powerful weather system could trigger a new round of deadly tornadoes. Several twisters have already hit and authorities warn 60 million Americans are in the storm's path.
A massive, dangerous tornado tearing up Kansas. Within an hour, there was another even larger. In Erie, Pennsylvania, a rare tornado damaged buildings and toppled power lines. Some 21 reported tornadoes in 24 hours, most in Kansas, stretching from Texas north to Michigan, a state that rarely sees twisters. In Illinois, flooding.
The power of the storms captured on security cameras at Carl Sandburg College as torrential rain sent floodwaters bursting through the doors. Tonight, no let-up. Watches and warnings cover several states as severe storms target the same communities devastated last week.
Residents on Mexico's southern Pacific coast return home, surrounded by the aftermath of a devastating storm. At least 2 men were killed when Hurricane Barbara hit the area on Wednesday.
The storm made landfall farther east than any other Pacific hurricane in decades.
Bringing it straight to that breaking news overnight, a lethal tornado outbreak in Oklahoma, a state already reeling from that rare EF5 twister that nearly erased the city of Moore.
It's hard to believe, but we've had tornadoes on the ground and aloft in the following places tonight: Oklahoma City, Joplin, Missouri, Moore, Oklahoma, and St. Louis, Missouri. It is an incredible line of violent weather. Oklahoma City has taken up most of the attention because they had an outbreak. The interstates were clogged with traffic. All you could see was headlights.
Thousands were trapped, the highways in perilous gridlock.
I'm telling you, there are thousands and thousands of vehicles. Every road is jammed.
These storms came in the middle of rush hour. Oklahoma's major roads were clogged with people scared, trying to outrun them.
It terrorized motorists over a 2-mile path.
We have debris and torn up towns and parts of cities across several states.
We know that at least 9 are dead, more than 100 injured, as 5 confirmed tornadoes ripped through. Among the dead, a mother and baby believed to have been sucked from their car.
The area was battered by high winds, heavy rain and hail, flooding streets, homes and submerging cars several feet deep. This sinkhole off a main road developed as high waters caused the soil to crumble.
I've talked to old-timers who've lived here their entire lives, and they tell me they've never seen a 2-week period like this in Oklahoma ever.
We learned something today that explains a lot. Meteorologists now say the largest of Friday night's tornadoes in Oklahoma was an EF5. It was the widest ever recorded. It was over 2.5 miles wide at the base. This also means Oklahoma saw 2 EF5s in just the span of 11 days.
From flooding to severe weather, the Midwest has seen it all the past couple of weeks. We're talking about winds of almost 300 miles per hour, and it was about 2.5 miles wide based on Doppler radar data. Now, this is a new record, not just for the United States, but for the world.
Authorities are bracing for more chaos across Central Europe as heavy rain continues to pound the region.
Prague is bracing itself for the worst as the Vltava River threatens to flood the historic centre. Rainfall across Central Europe is showing no sign of stopping. Over the weekend, rising waters killed 5 in the Czech Republic.
The Danube and other Austrian rivers have flooded, swamping entire villages, with some houses covered to the first floor.
The metro system was shut down and thousands have been evacuated from low-lying areas.
The torrential rain caused landslides too, and some places have been hit by 2 months' worth of rain in just days.
Much of the south and east of Germany have also been ravaged by floods and have now been upgraded from high alert to catastrophe.
A strong 6.3 magnitude earthquake hit Taiwan on Sunday, killing 1 person and violently shaking building in the capital Taipei, officials said.
The powerful quake sent people running into the streets and was also felt in Hong Kong, more than 700 kilometers away.
Torrential rain accompanied with strong winds struck several regions in northern and northwestern China over the past 3 days, flooding roads, uprooting trees, and interrupting traffic.
Torrential rain trapped 30 people. The water had risen to around 2 foot, as high as the passengers' chests, and with the rain continuing to fall, it was still rising.
Now, waters are continuing to rise across Central Europe, and Germany, of course, is particularly badly affected. More than 30,000 people in the eastern city of Halle have been told to leave their homes after rivers reached what are being described as their highest level for 400 years.
At least a dozen have died in the floods which have affected most of Central Europe over the last week. In Poland, firefighters fought to free passengers from flooded cars as storms brought the capital, Warsaw, to a standstill on Sunday as the town was drenched by 30 litres of water per square metre. The situation remains critical.
A state of emergency is still in force. In major Slovakian port Komarno, all shipping has been brought to a halt. Thousands have been evacuated all over Central Europe.
It was the worst flooding ever recorded in Budapest.
These are some of the worst floods to hit Germany in more than 500 years.
And we're going to turn now to Tropical Storm Andrea, the first storm of the Atlantic season, wreaking havoc as she barrels up the eastern seaboard. The massive rainmaker packing powerful winds, causing serious flooding. This storm really made a mess.
It did, and for a large part of the country, and very fast, because that's how this thing was. Very speedy, but it dropped plenty of rain.
Watch for these things. You will know. It is really a calendar. That's all it is a calendar. Watch for these things and you will know what season you're in. Everything is to repeat itself. I warn you, we are in very dangerous times. We are living in biblical times. I told my staff a long time ago, when you hear me start talking about God, you'll know we're at a different DEFCON level. When you start hearing me use the words Jesus Christ on the air, because I know what it does to my popularity, I know what it does to, I know what it does. And I know how it makes you a crazy Christian kook. And I said we will be at a much different DEFCON level when I start saying Jesus Christ and quoting the Bible. We are at the end. And I am sorry to say that I feel that we are now at the place to where you better have your house in order.
Lightning strike overnight, direct hit on the Willis Tower in Chicago. Now those huge storms heading for the East Coast.
But today there's a whole range of storms, and it's all over the eastern seaboard. We already have tornado watches and warnings that we think will be issued. We have a severe thunderstorm watch that's out right now. But we're already looking at about 280, almost 300 storm reports, 18 tornadoes. So this was bad enough. A series of severe storms spawned tornadoes, 80-mile-an-hour straight-line winds, and golf ball-size hail. And in Alexander, Iowa, farm damage and tossed cars. Hours later, tornado sirens blaring in Aurora, Illinois. Go from the 0 count in the last couple of hours to just within the last hour, almost 10,000 lightning strikes with this line that's moving east.
This is an unusual weather event. It's a line of strong thunderstorms, not just one, but sort of like a fast-moving freight train, nothing but thunderstorm after thunderstorm after thunderstorm. Some of them will have tornadoes, some of them will have large hail, they'll have lots of rain, and there's a chance that they will have a derecho, which is an unusual event.
In northern India, at least 23 people have been killed, with up to 50 others missing after 3 days of torrential rains and monsoon flooding. Uttarkashi in Uttarakhand state has been hit hard, with strong waters sweeping away buildings.
An earthquake has shaken Mexico City, causing power cuts across the region. Buildings were evacuated as a precaution. The earthquake measured 5.8 on the Richter scale.
Parts of France are on orange alert as savage storms leave a trail of destruction in their wake. The southwest region is on storm watch as the unseasonal tempest-like weather claims a third life. A 54-year-old woman drowned in her car in the Landes. Overnight, a mini tornado struck the Côte d'Or region, laying waste to 60 houses and leaving 15,000 homes without electricity. In the French Pyrenees, flash floods showed no mercy, sweeping away all in their path. Wine producers say this year's harvest was ruined in a matter of minutes after giant hailstones hit vineyards on Monday.
The Indian Army has rescued hundreds of stranded pilgrims and tourists.
People are reporting back saying that they have seen dead bodies floating. The fact that rain leads to this kind of floods is absolutely unprecedented.
Landslides have washed away the roads in the calamity-hit region.
Heavy rainstorms in Switzerland and flooding in France continue to cause havoc. For the second time in a week, participants at the Swiss Federal Gymnastics tournament had to flee as storm winds of 130 kilometers an hour swept through the site. Several people were injured by falling trees and trapped under debris. The region has been hit by heavy rains over the last 3 days, causing flash floods which have killed 3 people.
Back now, when we turn to the west, firefighters are still battling dozens of wildfires tonight. That situation is not being helped by severe, in some places, extreme drought conditions to one town where there is no water at all.
Brazil is ablaze with protest as hundreds of thousands of people demonstrate in cities across the country. From Porto Alegre to Sao Paulo to Rio, crowds have invaded the streets to voice their discontent with their government, where it's estimated that more than 1 million people are taking part in the fierce protests.
The images today from southwestern Alberta are truly mind-boggling. The devastation and disruption hard to process.
Communities are underwater. Tens of thousands of people are out of their homes. Buildings are submerged or abandoned. And the danger still isn't easing because more rain is coming. In Calgary alone, more than 75,000 residents are under evacuation orders. Police confirm 3 people have died in the flooding. And states of emergency have been declared in dozens of cities and towns.
For my whole life, I've never witnessed anything like this before.
The floods followed some 36 hours of unusually heavy rainfall. Some communities receiving 6 months in less than 2 days.
I've got to tell you, standing on a bridge in the dark when the power is out, listening to the roar of the river is terrifying.
Wellington has been battered by its worst storms in 40 years. Wind gusts of up to 200 kilometres an hour caused extensive damage across New Zealand's North Island, bringing down trees and signs. Flights, trains and ferry crossings were cancelled. Thousands of homes are without power. Ships were ripped from their moorings. The storm has moved onto the South Island, dumping heavy snow and causing chaos on the roads.
Another big and still developing story we're following tonight, those exploding wildfires, including one that officials say threatens to burn down an entire town.
Firefighters in southwest Colorado say a massive wildfire could keep burning for months.
Parts of the south coast have now received triple their average June rainfall in just 3 days. It bucketed down again today as paddocks were turned into lakes.
And creeks are rising rapidly. More homes were flooded at Shoalhaven Heads near Nowra. It's a 1 in 100 year event, and this just happened to be their year.
So far, there's been about 200 millimetres in some parts of the south coast. That is already double the usual average rainfall for the whole month of June.
Supporters of gay rights are celebrating after the US Supreme Court struck down a law defining marriage as between a man and a woman. The historic ruling claims the definition is unconstitutional. The decision means legally married gay couples are now entitled to the same benefits as man and wife.
And let's make no mistake,
aliens who brought DOMA down, and pretty soon it'll only be enough for all of us when we have full marriage equality in every state in the union. May God bless Edie Windsor, Robbie Kaplan, and all of you in our struggle for full equality.
Now today, America's atheists take another step forward in our struggle for equality.
We do feel like it's kind of a stick in the eye of the Christian people of Florida to have these outsiders come down here with their money and their leadership and promote their outside values here.
Millions of Egyptians came down to the streets in nationwide protests against President Mohamed Morsi on Sunday. International news outlets actually said this could be the largest demonstration seen in the history of the world.
Some 20 million outraged citizens have flooded cities across the nation, and at least 7 people have been killed and more than 600 injured.
Torrential rain and hailstorms have lashed in Mongolia in North China, leaving at least 8 people dead and 1 person missing, according to local authorities. The severe weather started just after 3 p.m. on Sunday, with some houses being hit and traffic affected. According to residents, the hailstorm lasted for about 10 minutes, damaging vehicles and greenhouses. There are thunderstorms and more rain forecast in the coming days.
Death Valley in California certainly lived up to its name as temperatures climbed up to 50 degrees Celsius. The US is experiencing a heat wave which could beat the highest temperature recorded in the Californian desert of 57 degrees. In Las Vegas, 30 people were rushed to hospital after suffering from the effects of the scorching heat at a music festival.
Sydney copped another drenching today, helping to make it our wettest June in 6 years. And forecasters say we're on track to break another record. One more day of steady rain could create a 1 in 10-year event for the city.
Thousands of people are missing in Uttarakhand state, where floods unleashed by early and unusually heavy monsoon rains show no sign of abating. The floodwaters have claimed more than 800 lives in the North Indian state. Tens of thousands have been forced to flee their homes. Heavy rains have been hampering evacuation and search and rescue efforts by the Army and Air Force.
The fact is that firstly, to get this kind of extreme rainfall events happening in June is absolutely unprecedented. The scale of it we don't even know yet. People are reporting back saying that they have seen dead bodies floating.
An earthquake measuring 6.2 magnitude struck the northern tip of Indonesia's Sumatra Island on Tuesday. The quake killed at least 22 and has left over 210 injured, according to Indonesia's National Disaster Mitigation Agency. Authorities say the earthquake has destroyed more than 1,500 houses and buildings in central Aceh province. More than 200 had been injured.
One woman got the ride of her life when a giant sinkhole ripped open a road and swallowed her entire car. The images are incredible.
A car just fell to the street on Detroit and Vandercroft. The hole opened up and it is in the hole. It sunk in.
Panic in the streets of Toledo, Ohio yesterday as a sinkhole opened up in the middle of the road and swallowed a car and its driver without any warning.
This is what's left over from Wednesday evening's storm, which dumped inches of nickel to golf ball-sized hail on Santa Rosa's downtown. It looks like a winter wonderland from the air. White blankets the streets, parks, and rooftops in Santa Rosa. But this isn't Christmas. It's the 4th of July. This hailstorm was dangerous, stranding drivers first in hail, then in floodwaters.
Forecasters say it's rare for this to happen.
It's just really bad. Something that I haven't seen, I've never seen. In my 50 years of life, I've never seen anything like this.
Some of the original stained glass windows at St. Rose of Lima Catholic Church were damaged by the hail. The falling hail was so loud, they couldn't even hear the carport collapsing.
I looked out and it was just raining hail. I had never seen that happen, you know.
This is the resort city of Qingdao. As one of China's top holiday spots, China's Yellow Sea has turned green. Algae has swamped more than 28,000 square kilometres. It showed up about a week ago, and an army of workers have cleared more than 20,000 tonnes so far. But there's more to come.
Flooding caused by torrential rains in Sichuan province over the past few days has damaged or destroyed hundreds of buildings. Tens of thousands of people have been forced to leave their homes in China's southwest.
Collapsing like toy houses. Buildings and bridges are swept away by the force of the water coursing through China's Sichuan province. The landslide and flooding have caused devastation, with local authorities reporting between 30 and 40 people buried in it.
How typical is this level of rainfall?
Well, we are seeing very heavy levels of rainfall, torrential rains since Monday, and it's sweeping across the country. In the next 24 hours, it's forecast that the worst affected areas will see almost 15 centimetres of rain. So it appears that there's going to be little respite there, that the floods are so bad that the rescue equipment is simply being swept away.
The downpours of 200 millimetres of rainfall have isolated the Huabi village, turning it into an island.
A powerful 7.1 magnitude earthquake has hit Papua New Guinea. The tremor was centred about
Papua New
90
Guinea, a 6.8 magnitude quake. People may have felt severe shaking.
Heavy rains brought severe flooding to Toronto and the surrounding areas. This was just the first wave of a major storm system that hit at the peak of the afternoon rush hour. It caught hundreds of thousands of people off guard.
One of the heaviest downpours in the city's history. More than a month's worth of rain fell yesterday afternoon in just a few hours. Water rose so quickly on some highways that drivers were forced to abandon their vehicles.
It's one of those events that it was a major rainfall event, and when you think, climate-wise, what had happened, a lot of things had to come together. I don't want to throw out perfect storm, but so many different factors had to come together to enable this event to actually occur.
Mexico's Popocatépetl volcano is looking increasingly threatening. The alert level is now at its third highest after the 5,450-metre volcano began spewing smoke and hot ash. Some international airlines have suspended flights.
At least 6 U.S. airlines have cancelled flights out of Mexico City and Toluca Airport, affecting routes as far afield as Dallas to Chicago.
The volcanic activity could trigger explosions capable of sending out burning hot material over long distances. The alert level was raised in...
A landslide in southwest China, triggered by heavy rainstorms and flooding, has claimed the lives of 12 people. At least 11 others are still missing. Humans and animals took shelter where they could. Many have lost their homes and possessions. In northern Sichuan, there are concerns that the largest lake in the region is about to flood, putting the lives of 700 local people at risk.
Parts of a highway in Colorado were shut down on Wednesday after heavy rain caused a mudslide to come rushing down the embankment.
The mudslide trapped more than a dozen cars on Wednesday afternoon. More than a half inch of rain fell in less than 20 minutes on Monday. The mud flowed into 20 houses in this area, and more than 160 people were forced to flee a trailer park.
Now to that dramatic rescue. A 6-year-old boy swallowed up by a sinkhole on the beach. He was trapped inside for more than 3 hours.
The 6-year-old nearly buried under a building's worth of sand.
We honestly don't know exactly what happened. This is unprecedented. We've never had anything like this.
It all took place at the Mount Baldy sand dune located at Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore Park. The dune is the park's tallest, standing at 124 feet along Lake Michigan, equivalent to a 12-story building.
They were walking on sand. It just swallowed him up. He was in an upright position. It just kept going down.
China has been bracing itself for the impact of Typhoon Sulik, which has already caused significant damage in Taiwan. The Chinese authorities say they've evacuated 300,000 people in the southeastern Fujian province. More than 5,000 soldiers have been deployed as a preventative measure. This was the scene in Taiwan as the typhoon struck, bringing strong winds and torrential rain. The whole island was put on alert as the authorities warned of the risk of flooding and landslides. At one stage, 800,000 homes were without electricity. We have some breaking news coming into us. A magnitude 7.3 earthquake
south of Bristol Island in the South Sandwich Islands.
According to the U.S.
Magnitude 5.1 earthquake has struck south of the Algerian capital Algiers early Wednesday morning, injuring around 20. The tremors could be felt 40 kilometers away in Algiers.
A major earthquake in southern Peru last night.
Residents were evidently shaken. A strong 6.2 earthquake.
12 people are believed to have died after this bridge collapsed in southwest China. 6 vehicles containing 15 people were submerged in the river. Only 3 people were rescued.
Week-long torrential rains triggered landslides and floods. State media reported 86 people have been killed.
On the northern coast of France, we actually showed it to you at the top of the show. They heard a rumble and an entire cliff was collapsing. Broad daylight. An estimated 30,000 tons of rock crashing onto the sand.
Mexico is investigating the mysterious death of hundreds of stingrays. The animals washed up on the shore of the Gulf state Veracruz. Residents and visitors first spotted the dead rays on Tuesday.
An earthquake with a magnitude of up to 6.9 has struck New Zealand. The tremor, which lasted for around a minute, sent office workers running for cover. Trains were brought to a halt in Wellington, and some damage was reported at the Parliament building.
Just one of a series of quakes that rattled the area.
The 2 earthquakes hit China's Gansu province on Monday. The 6.6 magnitude quakes have so far killed 94 people.
Hundreds more have been wounded, with some estimates putting the number of injured as high as 1,000.
China's government estimates at least 380 buildings have collapsed.
Hundreds of aftershocks followed the initial quakes. The death toll in the region continues to rise.
Another powerful 6.1 magnitude hit this morning.
Flash floods sweep across southern India, washing out roads and forcing villagers from their homes. 200 villages were evacuated. 40 towns remained cut off from the outside world. The rains also hammered the city of Warangal. The flooding follows torrential rains that devastated a vast part of northern India last month, where 6,000 remain missing.
Dramatic footage as a landslide sweeps away 28 houses and 6 hectares of farmland in China's Sichuan province. More than 1,400 villagers in the Kaupo township have been evacuated after rocks and earth poured down a mountain slope.
The South Sandwich Islands regions was also shaken by a series of
This morning,
earthquakes.
the magnitude 6.3 quake struck near
To the region, a series of earthquakes occurred this morning. 6.2 magnitude earthquake.
Yet another surveillance video of a car being swept away by muddy water in Yang'an City in China's Shaanxi province. After weeks of heavy rain, it's becoming a common occurrence. 4 people in a car were driving along a mountain pass when it was suddenly inundated by a nearly minute-long landslide. Rain-fed floodwaters have shut down roads and partially submerged houses in low-lying areas of North Carolina's Catawba County, prompting officials to declare a state of emergency. Large swathes of land covered by muddy brown waters, deep enough in some areas to submerge cars. Catawba and surrounding counties received up to 10 inches of rain on Friday and Saturday, and more rain is forecast for the region.
While some shelter from the sun, others are trying to keep dry. A mixed bag of weather is sweeping across Europe, including these impressive thunderstorms, which have thumped some suburbs of Paris. Several areas of France have been on alert. Here in Bordeaux, heavy rain has caused flooding. Here in Germany, things are really hotting up.
Experts are forecasting a heat wave with record high temperatures in the neighborhood of 104 degrees Fahrenheit.
Here in Rome, too, tourists are struggling to keep cool in the sweltering conditions. 14 Italian cities have been put on red alert.
Shanghai has experienced one of its hottest summers ever on Tuesday, with a record-breaking heat wave. Temperatures have hit above 38 degrees Celsius for a record 7 consecutive days starting last Tuesday. This is the hottest July ever recorded in Shanghai in the past 140 years. The extreme temperatures have already claimed lives.
97% of Queensland recorded above average temperatures.
It's a trend being felt across the country, with 2013 shaping up to be Australia's hottest year on record.
The trend is nationwide. The country has recorded its warmest ever day, week and month.
The scientists at NASA have given us some amazing images, and they've discovered there's actually an enormous dark hole over our sun.
What you're seeing is, this is 3.5 million degree plasma erupting from the surface of the sun. This part that's missing, the reason it's dark, is that whole chunk of the sun basically ripped off, blew out, and is coming our way at about 2 million miles an hour. You don't very often see something that big. So this is an incredible chunk of the sun that's flying out.
The sun is moving toward a big change in its magnetic field. In fact, the poles are about to switch, and that could have a major effect on perhaps our entire solar system. According to NASA, a change that could quite possibly, if all goes, well, we don't know for sure, but if there are amazing solar storms, electronic communications could be threatened. To give us some sense of what is happening here in the solar maximum, what is at risk here, in your judgment, potentially, as we watch the poles of the sun actually reverse?
How that affects us is really something that many people don't know.
There's a growing mystery along the bay in Maryland and Virginia. A large number of dolphins are dying, and marine experts are trying to figure out why.
Dozens upon dozens have washed up on beaches just like this. Up and down the East Coast, it continues. Bottlenose dolphins are dying and washing ashore at an unusual rate, especially in the Virginia section of the Chesapeake Bay. Now, the scientists say they don't know what this is, and that's a cause for concern.
We don't know what's going on right now, and we're working with National Marine Fisheries Service to try to figure it out.
The news of a large-scale die-off is unsettling.
To Enid, where a massive sinkhole has opened up.
It's 10 feet wide by 21 feet long, and there's concern that if it doesn't get fixed soon, it's just going to keep getting bigger. After heavy rainfall Monday night, the ground collapsed and the sinkhole reopened.
The talk of western Kansas is about a sinkhole near the town of Sharon Springs.
How and why it appeared remains a mystery. People have been flocking to this remote area to see it for themselves. The hole is some 200 feet across and 90 feet deep.
A few days ago, the earth opened up and left this giant sinkhole right in the middle of Dalton Haas's pasture. Some 200 feet across, 90 feet deep. People are amazed at the size of this hole that seemed to show up overnight.
Floods caused by incessant rainfall in the Shantrapur district of Maharashtra state in West India have killed 20 people and displaced more than 8,000 others. The water levels are far higher than normal.
Heavy rains continued, resulting in flood-like situations. The streets were flooded with water entering the houses, forcing locals to evacuate the area in the middle of the night. The situation worsened when floating dead bodies were entangled in the nearby swamps and water plants. These degenerated bodies polluted the area with a foul smell.
Houses were inundated, vehicles turned over, home furniture, utensils and pets swept away. The shops were also badly affected and shops are under floodwater. Refrigerators, freezers are lying outside shops swept away. And there is no rescue.
The panic and havoc seen in the Russian Urals last winter when a meteor the size of a house exploded in the skies, well, we could be set for a repeat. Scientists say the huge rock might not have been flying solo as first thought, but rather as part of a group of asteroids which still pose a threat to Earth.
And that is the fear, is this went undetected. So that's why scientists are trying to figure out if there are more possibly on their way. And what they found is nearly 20 different asteroids that are on this similar path. They span between 5 and 200 meters across.
I hate to be specific here, but do you have any idea about a timetable here? I mean, do you know, are they saying they might impact when and where, or?
A lot of these, they were only observing for 34 days. They need 2 years to actually see when something could ever hit Earth.
So as good as the world's telescopes are, national security and all that kind of stuff, they can spy on you doing anything anywhere, but they can't tell us when these guys are going to hit?
It's disheartening, isn't it?
It's pathetic.
Something big is about to happen on the sun. According to measurements from NASA-supported observatories, the sun's vast magnetic field is about to flip. It looks like we're no more than 3 to 4 months away from a complete field reversal. This change will have ripple effects throughout the solar system. Both poles will be reversed. A reversal of the sun's magnetic field is, literally, a big event.
This is the face of our changing world. Temperatures spiking, oceans heating up, climate records, and ice melting. What once was startling is now the new normal. From the air to land and the sea, every indicator pointed to global warming. It's the speed of change that's most striking. Scientists are still not sure what it will ultimately mean for our planet.
That there were dozens of summer rescues across Middle Tennessee. More than 4 inches of rain had fallen, which continued Thursday afternoon as flash flood watches remained active. Scattered showers and storms are predicted for the rest of the day.
A mystery over the skies of Collier County. Strange lights captured the attention of people in Naples, and those lights were captured on security cameras.
Whatever the showing of lights was, came and hovered over this pool behind me for nearly 30 minutes. Residents say they've never seen anything like it before. Experts, they're not quite sure what to make of it.
I've never seen anything like this.
Monday night, security officer Deborah Lee Thomas was watching the camera feed from behind a Gulf Shore Boulevard condo building just across the street from Venetian Village. She noticed strange lights swoop in over the pool.
And I realized that it was something that was not normal.
Here's what she saw. At first glance, it almost looks like a saucer-shaped object up top. Then it goes down into the pool and expands like a web, moving back and forth. After nearly 30 minutes, it starts to disappear, dipping in and out of the pool.
It was down on the ground, but some of that webbing was longer and it made a funnel down into the pool.
We sent the video off to MUFON, an UFO organization in Ohio. They're analyzing it, but they don't think it's a hoax.
I've never seen anything like this. The electrical charges coming from it are just truly unbelievable.
But what it is remains a mystery for now. Now, we did show the video to a biologist at the Conservancy of Southwest Florida to see whether or not they thought it was an animal. They don't believe it's an animal. Meanwhile, officials at MUFON tell me this is one of the most fascinating videos they've seen in a while. Coincidentally, this pool is closed for the next few days.
The waters are rising, and the map says it all. Now more than half the country under threat of floods, including flash floods.
Emergency crews actually had to use boats to rescue about 50 people from inside the store.
And it's not over. 48 hours of rainfall this.
People say the crazy bird event began as early as 7:30 or 8 o'clock this morning. They started dropping from the skies. A blanket of black. People who work in the area say the birds were flocking in a bizarre manner.
And then I was looking up, and then one fell right in front of me.
The birds littered the streets near the intersection of King and Dufferin.
Scores of streets in Japan underwater. Deadly flooding has killed at least 5 people in the northern part of the country.
The Japan Meteorological Agency told residents in the region to take immediate action to protect their lives after nearly double the monthly average of rain fell in a matter of hours.
They are unimaginable pictures. Cars washing down Highway 24, bobbing and surging along the muddy river. We don't know what happened to the people in the cars seen floating down the highway. At least 20 cars were caught in the flooding near Cave of the Winds.
A huge scare overnight at this resort, just 10 minutes from Disney World. While visitors were relaxing, a giant 60-foot sinkhole suddenly opened beneath them.
One woman was sitting in the tub, and the tub just levitated, and that's when she just grabbed a pair of shorts and came out with nothing.
The sinkhole nearly devoured one 3-story building and continues to sink another. Witnesses say they heard loud noises and windows cracking.
Six people have been killed in a volcanic eruption in Indonesia. Mount Rakatenda spewed ash and rocks into the air over the weekend, leaving 4 adults and 2 children dead. An earthquake measuring 6.3 in the Richter scale has also hit the country this weekend. It jolted the Maluku Islands.
Powerful earthquake in New Zealand. It registered between 6.6 and 6.9. It hit in the South Island region near Wellington.
And some pretty incredible video in southwest Japan. Day turns into dusk in a flash. This volcano explodes, shooting plumes of ash 3 miles into the air, caking a city in dust, shutting down trains. This thing has erupted 500 times since the beginning of the year.
Waterlogged Manila residents try to stay afloat as most of the Philippine capital is flooded. Heavy rains pounded the city. Weather forecasters have issued their highest rainfall warning, adding that severe floods and torrential rain are likely to continue.
Floods in northeast China have claimed the lives of 37 people. But the floods, caused by days of heavy rainfall, have also damaged swathes of farmland and facilities across the region.
South China's Guangdong province is witnessing its worst flooding in 50 years as Typhoon Utor brings days of heavy rainfall.
More than 20,000 people have been evacuated from flood-hit areas in Russia's Far East after heavy rain.
As far as the eye can see, floodwaters submerge swathes of eastern Russia.
And all around you can just see rooftops and treetops sticking out from above the water.
Water levels have reached 6 meters in some places. The floods, brought on by unusually heavy rains, are the biggest to hit the area in 120 years.
We've seen a number of sinkholes this year, but nothing like this. Everything vanishing in about 30 seconds.
A stand of trees seemingly melting into this swamp in Bayou Corn, Louisiana, is being swallowed into a massive sinkhole, sucking everything down with it.
A sinkhole striking again. This time it's an entire lake that gets sucked underground and fish just left flopping around in Ocala.
His neighbors watched the sinkhole swallow up water.
You're so intent on watching it that you don't really realize what's happening. And when we looked over, and of course there was no more water anywhere in the pond.
At around 6 o'clock, rain and hail pounded parts of Littleton, flooding the area with nearly 4 feet of water in some places, and leaving behind nearly 6 inches of hail.
I would definitely say it looks a lot like winter in the middle of August.
One of the largest wildfires in California history continues to burn, reaching the size of Chicago. Almost 150,000 acres have been engulfed by the blaze.
A smoke plume so huge it can be seen from space.
What we're seeing is, we're in a time like no other, are we not?
This is unprecedented, and it's just ramping up. This year, you're going to see this complete dissolve of the United States of America as we know it. It's happening right in front of our eyes. We have a Congress which is completely corrupt on every level, who decides against the will of the people to somehow legalize gay marriage. Meanwhile, the Middle East is going bonkers. Crazy summer riot, combined with the record temperature breaking, fish and animal die-offs, earthquakes everywhere, 9.0 stuff that's now the new norm, volcanic activities going through the charts. There are more UFO sightings now than ever before. How can anyone sit here? Why don't the churches address this stuff? Why don't the pastors wake up and tell their people what the heck is going on? That Jesus in Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21 admonishes us that these things that we're seeing now are exactly the signs that he told us would come to him before his second coming. Wars and rumors of wars, famines and pestilence, earthquakes in different places, troublesome time, the sun doing weird stuff, signs in the heavens, men fainting from fear for coming on the earth, Satan coming with all signs and lying wonders. It's happening, folks. Just wake up. Just wake up.
Many terrace residents awoke to a rather unearthly sound, which was heard around parts of the city at around 7:30 this morning. The sound lasted for roughly 10 minutes and was recorded by many people. Similar sounds have been reported all over the world in recent years, including in Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States.
It's like fog coming down over.
It's just sucking it right down, huh?
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Tropical storm Kongray has dumped more than 500 millimeters of rain on Taiwan.
Officials have stated a total of 3,600 residents have been evacuated. Trains and airplanes have been cancelled. So far, 3 people have died. Floodwater was reported to be up to second-story level in some places. Kongray is the second tropical storm to hit this month. Forecasters say torrential rain could continue across Taiwan.
A building is swept away in a giant landslide caused by continuous heavy rains in South China's Guangxi region.
A powerful earthquake has hit a mountainous area in southwestern China. The magnitude 5.9 quake occurred just after 8 a.m. local time on Saturday. 4 people were killed and several injured. Landslides in Yunnan province triggered by the earthquake.
Major 7.0 magnitude earthquake rocked Alaska's Aleutian Islands Friday.
Neighbors say a jet-like rumble shook homes and sent several people scrambling for cover.
Several aftershocks followed the large earthquake, including one that was recorded as 4.5 magnitude.
Extremely hot weather is gripping eastern Iowa, and while we're sweating and crops are wilting, the heat is also affecting Iowa's lakes and rivers.
The fish aren't biting. Maybe that's because thousands of them are dead. Now it's a snake-filled pit of fish carcasses.
Biologists are trying to unravel a mystery in northeastern New Mexico. More than 100 elk found dead on a ranch about 20 miles north of Las Vegas.
A gruesome discovery on the sprawling 75,000-acre Buena Vista Ranch near Mora. A massive die-off of more than 100 elk within 1 square mile. The elk weren't shot, so Game and Fish is investigating just what caused the deaths, which seemed to happen overnight.
Up and down the East Coast, hundreds of dead dolphins have been washing up on the shores, particularly here in Virginia Beach. Now, experts simply don't know what is causing all of these hundreds of dolphins to die.
This is by far the most serious event that I've ever seen.
The suburbs of Tokyo have been hit by a rare tornado that swept through Noda City and Koshigaya on Monday, damaging hundreds of homes, cutting off power to tens of thousands of people and injuring 30. Eyewitnesses said they'd never seen anything like it, and the unprecedented event took everyone by surprise.
The scale of the damage from what appears to be a tornado is practically unheard of in Tokyo suburb. The tornado, witnessed by many, hit several suburban towns outside the Japanese capital.
Just before 6 a.m. on September 4th, KLKN's HD Tower Cam 8 gave Channel 8's morning meteorologist Sean McMullen a less than normal view.
I've never seen anything like this before. I even say that several times while I'm on air describing the object because I want to let people know that, you know, even I don't know what this is, so I can't exactly tell you what it is.
The triangular-shaped flashing object appears to be floating above the capital city. By the time the sun comes up, we can't see it anymore. A Channel 8 viewer captured similar footage.
It's an unidentified object. We don't know what it is.
Another description of a triangular-shaped object was seen that morning, a couple hours earlier, in Lee's Summit, Missouri. We've thrown around a flying lantern, a hot air balloon, Jupiter, or even an aircraft, but so far nothing's added up.
It's not every day you're hanging out in school only to be struck by a huge tornado. This is the second tornado to strike northern Tokyo in the last week and has been rated F2 on the Fujitia scale. Thousands of homes have been damaged, and local police said that at least 60 people have been injured after the twister tore through the suburban areas of the city.
And last night, if you saw what looked like a ball of fire across the sky, well, it turns out that it was a baseball-sized fragment of a comet.
It appears to have broken apart above Woodstock, Alabama.
It was traveling at a speed of 76,000 miles per hour, burning so bright that it was 15 times brighter than the planet Venus.
A lot of people reported their house shaking or sonic booms.
Radar shows a number of impacts across the state of Alabama.
So this one's a little unusual that it came only 20 miles up, so you have the reports of the sonic boom.
Bright. It was brighter than the moon.
Very interesting. It is something that you do not see every day.
But we're going to turn now to what's being called biblical flooding across Colorado. Residents said they've never seen anything like it. The image is just shocking. Homes up to their roofs with water, rescuers using canoes to get people to safety.
People have been killed and thousands evacuated.
Boulder County, Colorado is underwater. Torrential rains causing flash flooding. It has been pouring here all night and it's still coming down.
Those rainfall totals that are sometimes coming up with almost half a year's rain in just a matter of hours.
Officials are ordering mandatory evacuation.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
This level of flooding is unprecedented.
I've never seen it like this.
In some areas, entire homes collapsed.
Unusual weather patterns brought half a year's worth of rain in just a few hours.
This is scary. This is really scary.
Monstrous fire that destroyed a great American boardwalk, and this evening the blaze still smoldering more than 24 hours later. 30 shops, which spent months and millions of dollars rebuilding after Hurricane Sandy, gone. The fire finished the job that Sandy started.
30-mile-per-hour winds pushed the flames north into Seaside Heights. It's where last year that iconic roller coaster ended up in the bay following Superstorm Sandy. It took months of work and $8 million to rebuild this boardwalk, only to see it destroyed for a second time.
Of some of the worst flooding to hit Mexico in decades. At least 80 people have died and thousands have lost their homes after days of torrential rain brought on by 2 tropical storms. Landslides have claimed many of the victims, their homes buried beneath tons of mud. With extensive damage to the country's roads and bridges, many areas have been cut off. In the Mexican beach resort of Acapulco, burst rivers brought with them alligators swimming onto the city's streets. Police have also reported looting, where everything from televisions to Halloween decorations have been taken.
The raging waters are the result of 2 storms converging and drenching nearly 2/3 of the country. For one of the worst natural disasters in the country's history.
The death toll is expected to rise and the rain is yet to stop.
Harper's Bridge on the west side of the Missoula Valley. It's one of the spots Fish, Wildlife, and Parks officials say they found a number of dead deer. People are seeing healthy-looking deer instantly fall over dead. Cases are also being reported in New Mexico and North Dakota.
The world's strongest typhoon this year has killed at least 25 people in southern China and paralyzed Hong Kong's airports, leaving hundreds of travelers stranded. Typhoon Yusagi, which means rabbit in Japanese, swept through Guangdong province, bringing heavy rain and winds of more than 180 kilometers an hour.
The typhoon created giant waves reaching 8 meters tall, forcing some villages to be evacuated.
A massive 7.8 magnitude earthquake hit Pakistan this morning, killing dozens.
The death toll has risen to 350.
Hundreds more are hurt, thousands are homeless.
This earthquake was so powerful that the force of these shifting plates created a new mini island in the Arabian Sea. But you can see there in the center of the screen kind of that mound. Well, the seabed shot up out of the ocean during the earthquake about 600 yards off the coast of Pakistan.
And this quake created a new island off the coast. It's quite a large island too, over 600 feet long and 65 feet high. Boatloads of bewildered residents have traveled to see the rare phenomenon despite warnings against visiting.
Strong aftershock continue to shake southwest Pakistan this morning.
A magnitude 7 earthquake shook the southern coast of Peru on Wednesday. The quake struck 46 kilometers deep in the Pacific Ocean. It shook buildings in the capital Lima, 500 kilometers away, and was also felt in northern Chile.
Five days ago, a strong quake hit southwestern Pakistan, leaving a trail of death and destruction. Now, the same area has been rattled by another tremor.
There is a 7.2 magnitude of earthquake which has hit, according to Pakistan Meteorological Department.
Amran district was severely hit by the first quake on Tuesday. Over 500 people lost their lives. The area is faced with shortages of food, drinking water and medical supplies. as temperatures reach 42 degrees Celsius.
We've got some news just coming in from Japan, where the radiation reading at a water tank at the ruined Fukushima nuclear power plant has risen by 18 times.
TEPCO officials say one of Saturday's readings was 1,800 millisieverts per hour. Radiation at this level can kill a person in 4 hours. In another area, radioactivity of 230 millisieverts per hour was measured at a puddle underneath a pipe connecting tanks.
Studies indicate that radioactive water will contaminate the entire Pacific Ocean in just 6 years.
Well, a new government study shows millions of people who live along the coast of California are at risk for a possible tsunami.
At least 30 people have been killed in floods in Cambodia as heavy rains have drowned provinces along the Mekong River.
A powerful earthquake with a magnitude of 7.8.
It is a massive earthquake killing hundreds, leaving thousands more injured and homeless.
Biblical flooding across Colorado. Residents said they've never seen anything like it.
70 people are missing South China. Typhoon Wutip's been lashing the region. 70,000 people have already been evacuated.
After several recent deadly disasters.
For meteors to enter the Earth's
During
atmosphere.
a bright fireball, no doubt.
The sun is moving toward a big change in its magnetic field. In fact, the poles are about to switch.
How realistic is this scenario that a tsunami hits the California coast?
So this is an absolutely inevitable scenario.
Meanwhile, Russia is reportedly moving warships closer to Syria.
Homeless after an earthquake of similar magnitude.
Israel has tested a missile defense system in the Mediterranean, causing a brief spike in tension in a region currently seeing a buildup of military force, as the U.S. positions itself for an expected attack on Syria.
Israeli officials say they are ready if the country is targeted with missiles by Syria or its pro-Iranian ally Hezbollah. The military is on a state of alert. Reserves have been called up. Here's Syrian military officials saying this: if Syria is attacked, Israel will also be set on fire. And Iran is watching closely to gauge international response.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order